Hello, everyone. Welcome to another live stream. I am playing around. I'm using a new, testing out a new streaming platform because StreamYard is very expensive. So I'm going to be playing with features like lower thirds. How exciting. Um, I am multi-streaming, testing things to YouTube. Most of you, I'm going to assume, I mean, everyone here right now, I assume YouTube, because no one on Twitch knows who I am, but I have a friend who's a Twitch streamer and she's like, stream to Twitch. So I'm also streaming on Twitch. And if people pop in from there, they're going to have no freaking clue who I am. But everyone, YouTube fam, hi, welcome. We're just going to talk about whatever today. It's Galentine's Day. Happy Galentine's Day to those who celebrate, which has got me, I've been in a romance mood, but romance mood. I'm drafting a new romance novel while I wait to hear from my agent about going on sub with my previous romance novel. I'm seeing Wuthering Heights tonight. It might end up being a train wreck. Every time I've seen the trailer, I have just screamed, sometimes quietly out loud if I've been in the theater. This is literally not Wuthering Heights. I'm very curious to see what she does because I'm like, why is Catherine alive? Questions. So many questions. But gonna see that tonight because I'm mixed on Emerald Fennell's movies, but like one, mid on the other. So very curious to see what I think about that. But romance mood. I am all in on Traitors. Last night was great. Last week was epic. So if anyone is here and wants to talk about the Traitors, part of what I want to play with these live streams is that we don't always have to talk about writing, even if I'm a writer and a writing channel. But I am always happy to talk about writing. 911, we're on a hiatus, slowly chewing the hand off, waiting for it to come back again, especially because we're seeing behind the scenes leaks that look really, really promising and I might go crazy. We're good. I've been mainlining Survivor. I did in 2022, I think I watched 15 to 20 seasons of it. I just had a period of my life where I just watched a bunch of Survivor because I had never seen it before. I'm one of those people who Paramount Plus, putting all the seasons on there, really smart decision. But I haven't seen every season. And so in prep for Survivor 50, because of Traitors 4, because Rob Sesternino was on Traitors 4, so I started watching his podcast, listening to his podcast, which made me go, I need to catch up for Survivor 50. So I've been binge watching Survivor, and I have Survivor thoughts. And this all works. This is all technically research because the book I'm working on has reality television in it. So everything is technically research. You can make anything research for a book if you decide to take things that you're weirdly obsessive about and put them into fiction. One cool thing I can play with is I can show comments on the stream. See, so I'm playing with different platforms to kind of get a feel for where I want to stream. And let me also play with style, because I feel like that clear style, can I change the way that the stream looks? See, we're just playing. We got that's actually kind of annoying that this has to be clear. Oh no, see, you are with me as I test out how all of this works. I don't know. I'll figure it out. Hopefully you can read those comments. This is a little bit freewheeling. Stream says Galentine. Yes, Galentine's Day stream. Oh yeah, I can change the lower third to AMA. It's so cool. This is very fun. Let's see, comments. So you can see them on screen too, but I will read them out as well for accessibility. I have heard from a friend who was ranting about having seen it. I'm guessing she had ... opinions. I expect to also have ... opinions. I heard someone call it White Ring Heights. I mean, so the two things that I have screamed internally or at the screen every time I've seen the trailer is, why is Catherine alive and why is Heathcliff white? The two things are choices. So I'm hoping it's doing something meta. It could surprise me, but I was incredibly mixed on Saltburn. I liked Promising Young Woman way more than I liked Saltburn. Saltburn, I mean, we can get into salty movie opinions if we want, But so we don't know how I'm gonna land on this one. Traders Ireland. This is my sadness. I think I said on the last stream, what kills me is we can watch all English language. Here, I'm going to play with the chat. I can highlight individual questions too. So we're playing with it. We can see every English language traders in the US except for Ireland and Canada. And I feel deprived and I'm mad about it because I want to watch Traders Ireland. I love Traders. I will watch every season. All right. So fun. How is the romance coming along? I'm so excited. You seem happy and writing again. Yes. So I mean, I've been writing. I've just been like offline. Oh, also, this is my Parks and Recreation Galentine's Day wine glass. It says hose before bros, uteruses before deuteruses, ovaries before broveries, because that is what Leslie says in the Galentine's Day episode. So themes. I also have my Parks and Rec Treat Yourself water glass because I love these glasses. This is like NBC store. I really like their glassware. So I've like bought a bunch of it with like different stuff on it because it's just like high quality glassware that's like this is 16 ounces of water and the wine glass is 12. And so I don't drink wine out of it. I drink other beverages. How is the romance coming along? So I'm working on a new one. And partly what I figured we would talk about on this, y'all can ask any writing questions you want, but I thought it'd be fun to kind of talk about like starting a book and when you're throwing yourself into a new project and writer brain. I'm back on writer brain, which is a nice feeling. And I started last week and I knew I was ready to like really throw myself into this book that I've been kind of percolating on because I started to feel like that itch. Do you guys feel the itch where you're like, I really need to write. Why aren't I writing? I feel bad about not writing. And like you have the ideas. And so at a certain point, my MO is like, I just have to throw myself off a cliff. Because otherwise I'll procrastinate forever and I just won't write a book. It's the Lansing thing. Just got to haul myself off of the cliff and just start writing. And so I started doing that in earnest last week. I had about 5,000 words just kind of sitting. Now I'm at 10. Just kind of because I figured something out last week, which is also a very good feeling. And I figured something out last week. So in addition to Survivor, the book has like a nod to Survivor, but the hilarious thing of me just watching, I probably watched 100 hours of Survivor in the last couple weeks. The irony of just binge watching that is that it's barely a feature in my book. My book really is more about like dating reality TV, the genre I watch the least of, but I do enjoy. I probably mentioned this on my last stream. If I didn't, your girl watched like over 40 hours. It was probably like 50 to 60 hours of Love Island season 6 in pilgrimage to a book in the fall. It's a show. I am in love with Rob Roush, like fangirl stan, and I have complicated feelings. I also watched Beyond the Villa. It got me. I hated it. I hated the first episode like passionately. And then I was like, oh, keep watching for posterity. Like if you're gonna write a book that's passing commentary on Love Island, you should watch it. And then I got sucked in and I get it now. Because I don't do haterade. Like I wouldn't write about something if I actively hate it. I find dating reality shows like really interesting and I've always watched them on and off, but I have criticisms that I want to address in a romance novel. Because I'm incapable of writing something that doesn't get a little semi-serious, but yeah, so I watched one season of Too Hot to Handle earlier in the week, late last week. What is time? And it gave me I hadn't figured, like, there's always like a linchpin to a book where I have to figure it out. I can't write it until I figure out what that thing is that kind of creates the rough structure in my mind. And I figured out the thing by watching season 1 of Too Hot to Handle. So I'm throwing myself off a cliff to write a book. So this is relevant. Oh, Berlin, hello. Oh, my German just flew out of my ear. I do technically know how to speak German, theoretically. Hello, greetings from Los Angeles. Here is my question. How do you get started? How do you write the very first sentence? This is a great question. Though I mean, I'll tell you my weird brain process. I don't know if it's helpful because it's just what works for me. I almost never have problems with first sentences, relatively speaking. I have problems with a lot of the other sentences. I have problems with middles. I know, like, once a first line comes to me and leads to a first paragraph. It's a first page. I know I can write a book. Like if like the voice and the punch comes to me, I know that I can do it. And it's just like it's usually like a crazy like moment for me where it like hits me like lightning, and it's just like I'll run or on my phone and I'll just like barf something out. And that said, that's always been my thing. And for many, many books, I never changed my first line. That is not the case anymore. I've now had 2 books where I rewrote my first chapter while previously saying like they come to me and they're perfect. Not in like a hubris way, just like they were never, I always liked them and they worked and said exactly what I wanted to say. But then I wrote The Bitter End, and my first chapter, my original first chapter as rendered, just ultimately didn't end up working. So I wrote a brand new one. And then I'll say that like usually I'm very proud of my first lines. I'd say my first line of the current Bitter End, it's good, but it's not like earth shattering. I do kind of, when I have the zing and it sticks, it is kind of nice. And then my romance, same thing. I don't remember my original first line. Oh, for it that I changed. It was like Instagram was a mistake. I originally had a character doom scrolling, and I've changed that now. Yeah, it's how do I get started with that first line? Like it's who the character is, what their perspective is. I really do like pithy. I mean, I'm kind of like, it's not that they're all sarcastic, but they're all a little punchy because I'm a little punchy and I like punchy writing. So it's like, what is like a thesis statement or a thing that they can say in a way that they can say it that is going to set up my scene while also communicating character. And I like one-liners. So it's usually a one-liner. And it's just like what's the pithiest way to like, shoving off cliffs is a good metaphor to like push the reader right into it. That's kind of where I start. You're making me feel so jealous. Ireland and Canada are so good. I've heard they are so good. And this is me pleading with Peacock to get the rights. Pay whatever it takes. You had billions of people stream season 4 of Traitors. You can afford it, I hope. Although the Olympics is very expensive and they had to pay out a lot of money to David on Dondi. So maybe not. Maybe their budget is shot. But please buy to get to US distribution rights for Ireland and Canada. Sincerely signed me. I mean, frankly, I would watch the international seasons if they put subtitles on them. I think they underestimate how many Americans, especially because I watch everything with captions now because of how messed up all the sound design is on streaming. Like they're all like garbage and you can barely tell what people are saying. So I have captions turned on at all times now because of that. So I was a subtitles girly before that. I really think that they should bring over, like the OG is from the Netherlands, like bring it over and slap subtitles on it. I would watch every season. I think they have a ton of them. Traders Love in the chat. Season 4, like I think season 2 is peak in a lot of ways. I mean, every season really has like pros and cons. I was a little bit worried about this one because of some of the casting, and it definitely, I'm not as down on it as some viewers. It ended up working for me. Was I excited to have Michael Rappaport on the Traitors? No. Was I super excited to have Colton Underwood? I wasn't super excited to see Colton on the Traitors, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I thought they edited around some personalities who are not my favorite well. And then I love a lot of the other cast. And the drama's been good. And it's just been good to see a traitor playing a good game. Like I loved season 3 for the mess and for the Dylan Efron of it all. But I remain sad. I think the number one thing season 3 did that messed it up is, and it's so funny because it worked on UK, but UK was strangers. Because it's the same production company, and they film them back to back, and they'll often take whatever they did on that season of UK, whatever new twist, and they'll apply it to US Traitors. And so the one last season was they brought 3 they'd already done a couple days, and they put 3 potential players in cages, and then they had to do this thing where 2 of them ended up coming into the castle late, or actually maybe it was all 3 of them on US. think it was all three of them. But like part of the catch was that you didn't know they were coming in as traitors or faithfuls. But the problem is that they did this on US traitors with 3 super famous reality television show villains, including villains and strategists, including Boston Rob, who I adore. But the problem is that it's really screwed over Boston Rob, who was brought in as a traitor, because immediately all of the faithfuls were like, well, it's one of them, so like we're gonna go for them. And so I just think from the jump he was really screwed over in how he could approach his game strategically, and there was such mess in the turret, and it was kind of disappointing. This season we have mess, but a different kind of mess. I love it when you get a season where the traitors are really good. That's kind of the fun part of it. And like one of my favorite seasons like is Australia season 1 because of that, because it was just a really good season of traitors like being fun and smart. UK has some really good traitor forward seasons as well. I love a good faithful play, but really we watch it for the traitors. So all right, let's see. I'm sure I'll jump back around to traitors, but addressing questions because I'm notoriously bad at getting behind on chat. So I'm playing around with a romance idea and no idea how to start. I loved your, I'm sure to you, ancient and unknowable, right? That's like, people will mention videos to me. I'm like, Some of them are like 8 years old. I was like, what? I did what? Or more than that. Oh God. Video on backwards outlining. How much, that one sticks because I believe in that. Starting at the end, I still do that a lot of the time. How much do you have for a romance to start out? That's a great question because I did develop that methodology. It helped me the most with thriller writing. And for me, it's essential for thriller writing because like ends and thrillers are so important. Romance, I do still do that, but in a different way. And I did technically do it on my retellings. I just was so nascent in my writing that I like whenever I make a video, have made a video, it's because I've been doing something, but then I actually figured out a way to articulate the thing I was doing. So I was doing it anyway, just differently with retellings, which of course had an existing framework, and romances. Just appreciate. Hi, Betty System 5. If you're still here, you're my fam. We can talk about 911 if you want, anytime. But so with romance, for me, it's all about the emotional arc, the character journey, and how I'm setting them up in terms of, and this is the thing when you're designing a romance, like who are your 2 leads? In what ways do they mirror each other? Both, especially in their like core want, I guess you could call it. And obviously in what ways are they different, because you're going to have some sort of conflict of some kind to create tension and make it kind of fun. Opposites attract, not always. Even when they're similar, you still want to have like, because humans are messy. And part of what makes real life relationships hard is when like you have your perspective and they have their perspective and you might butt heads, but how are you going to work through that? But I think about where I'm starting them. Obviously where I want them to end up is together. And that's the emotional arc, but what are they going to discover both together and apart that is going to get them there? And that's what I'm thinking of, sometimes specific to plot beats, but it's often just, it's character driven. It's like more emotional. But I do like to have for romance, an idea in my head of like, it's my set piece thing. And it's kind of like knowing the ending and outlining backwards, but it's like, it's something that happens in Act 3 generally. That's I'm writing toward. And so for romance, that is hooking up often, but also falling apart and then coming back together. I like to have some kind of idea in my head of the kind of succession of how that's going to work. Even if I don't have it exactly. So like with the one, should I use my title? It doesn't matter. So my previous one is, I'll use initials. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't say my title, or I'm going to call it BFE. That's the initials. For BFE, I did not know exactly how I was going to get them back together. I did know before I started, or in the early stages of starting, when and where they were going to hook up and how I was kind of going to get them there. In Act 3, it's more of a slow burn. And I knew how I was going to break them up temporarily, the awful thing that was going to happen. So that's the starting from the end for romance for me. In this new one, it's because it's different with every book, and you should allow it to be different with every book. With this one, which we'll call it DTF. So with this one, I still don't know exactly when they're gonna hook up. You know what I mean? I have an idea, and I have if I'm gonna build up to it, but I don't. This one is not a slow burn in the same way, so I'm not exactly sure where it's gonna fall. But I do know how I'm going to throw wrenches in the works, and something that's going to happen in Act 3 that's kind of both the wrench in the works and the thing that's going to bring them back together. And I'm writing toward that. The bigger thing with this one, and this might help you depending on what your thing is that I hadn't figured out the structure of how to do the romance arc itself, like the framework within I was going to place them to create conflict and how. And that's what I figured out last week. Because essentially, in this specific case of this book, I have to design my own dating show. Like, I have to create my own reality show, and it just can't be another reality show because that's boring. And coming up with my own reality television concept is actually really hard. I had to do it for 2. And when I finish this book, I really want to pitch to network. I'm like, put me in, coach. I think these are actually good ideas. My Survivor knockoff is actually fire. It's like Survivor meets The Mole meets The Traitors, and I would watch it. Let's do it. Let's greenlight this. So that was kind of that one. Oh, I do need to watch more season of Love Island UK. So I basically got so sucked in by season 6 US, including I loved her on After Sun. And that's why I was so excited to see her on Traitors, because she really grew on me on After Sun. She's fun. I actually don't think Traitors is highlighting her to her greatest potential. Because in fairness, she's playing a very specific character on Traitors, which is what you do on Traitors. But I loved her on After Sun. And I was sad. Like, I haven't watched season 7 of Love Island USA for a couple of reasons. Because I mean, I heard 6 was the GOAT, and to watch 6 first. But also, she doesn't post After Sun that season because she was filming The Traitors. I'm curious to see what happens. I might check out All Stars and see what happens with the plan for the next season. And then, yeah, I need to track down her season of Love Island UK, which I hear is the best season of Love Island UK. But Love Island is such a commitment, and I have to watch at least 2 other dating shows before I watch another season of Love Island UK. I have told myself I plan on watching Are You the One at least 1 season. And I plan on watching The Ultimatum, the queer one. I was told to watch the queer one. That one is like really good. And then I'll probably watch more of Too Hot to Handle because it's like short and dumb. I actually have a lot of issues with it, but like I just need these like formats in my brain and like all of the dumb challenges that they do. Yeah, jumping around in chat. I love the idea of a romance novel critique of reality dating shows. Yeah, and here's the thing. Of course, there are other romance novels set on reality TV shows, but I'm hoping I can do something that's specific to me. Like, I haven't exactly decided what it is, but it's definitely high concept, and I definitely plan on using to my advantage the fact that I do live in Los Angeles. And the hilarious thing is, I know a lot of people who work in TV, and just talking to people about this, I've had no fewer than 4 people say, "Oh, I know someone who works on Survivor. Do you want me to connect you with them?" The answer is yes. Or other reality shows. I have personal friends who worked on like reality shows I have watched, who have told me great little nuggets that are very, very helpful. And one of my favorite shows is Unreal, which is definitely an inspo for this book, because like the on the show stuff is fine, but I think the producers are the most interesting part of reality TV. Part of watching The Traitors for me and watching Survivor, definitely watching Love Island. This is actually what kept me going with Love Island. And if you also are like, why would I watch Love Island? Watch it for this reason, because I like to observe the show behind the show, which is watching it and thinking about all the manipulation that went into creating these moments and these storylines, the choices that the producers probably made, and definitely the choices that the editors made. I like the meta level of watching reality television, always have. So that's something that I am very, very interested in. You write such great suspense novels, and you love romance. Have you ever considered writing romantic suspense? Yeah, it's inevitable that I will. And actually, the adult thriller concepts I have that are on just hold right now are in that arena for sure. And that's kind of probably, I was like teetering on an edge where I was already writing the romance in the thrillers. I was working on a couple of them. And then I just like fell fully over into romance, which I think like I've, you know, if we want to talk about trends, I just think I am not the only person. I think a lot of us are in like a need for escape mindset right now. I just needed the froth. Currently still need the froth of romance. Like it still has conflict and stuff is going on, but I just need it to be like dumb and romantic and sexy. Like that's what I'm enjoying writing right now. And watching to some degree. Let's see here. I can show chat on stream. I think it's so cool. I might not be caught up, but you guys can go ahead. Here, let me, yeah, so I'm playing with this new streaming platform. Like it's not ideal with the white text on my background. I will figure out like how this works, I promise. Let's see. Oh, here, thank you. I'm so glad that I kept you company working on your thesis. Like, obviously, I talk about fiction, but hopefully, I can help with all kinds of writing, maybe. Hello from Australia. What is your least and worst favorite parts of writing, marketing a book? Writing a book. Two things. I don't love action scenes. Because I can be prone to mechanical writing. I can be incredibly, and white room syndrome, but I can be very prone to like, X did this, X did that, telling, it's my disease. And I don't like doing that. And action is like, you kind of have to like figure out the balance of like being able to show like people being able to visualize what is happening, but without getting into the weeds of just something that I find is kind of boring. And also, hilariously, kissing scenes. I actually really don't like kissing scenes specifically, like sex scenes or whatever. I don't care, just because they're weird to write and there's only so many ways you can write them. And especially now as I'm having to write repeatedly, I'm like, well, how am I going to make this different? They're just kind of awkward, even in the YAs, like, you know, because I would have characters. I mean, they'd kiss more than they would do anything else because it was YA. And I find them weird to write. It's kind of funny. And then in terms of marketing a book, whoa, favorite and least favorite parts. My favorite parts, I really like events. Even though I get very anxious before panels and I've had some bad panel experiences, I like going out in person and talking. I don't love talking in front of people. I really do get anxious, but I like having a conversation with other people. I love a panel where it's like authors who I think are really cool, who are super smart. I like listening to them talk. I'm like to do a one-liner here or there. I try not to I'm always worried about sounding dumb, so I actually try not to talk too much in panels, but I will always make a joke. I like that energy of being on a really good panel where we actually talk about something, and then I enjoy the signing lines and actually meeting readers afterwards. It's really fun and energizing. It can also be a nightmare. And my least favorite part is social media obligation, and specific to social media obligation, just having the pressure of having to perform in a very specific way that is not organic to who I am as a person. And generally, I therefore don't do it. But then I get FOMO about it. There's certain kinds of content, like author content that works on social media, that I'm abysmally bad at. They are just so counter to who I am as a person. So I can't do them because I'm a very bad actress. I'm very bad at like artifice. And so it means I suck at certain things. Like I know intellectually what could work, and I can't do it. I really hate that sense of like, you know, powerlessness, and like I kind of self-flagellate the like, oh, if only you were better at things, you would be better at things. You suck at this is always kind of in the back of my head. Just like Traders Talk, Ireland, Traders Quebec. Yeah, like we should just license Canada and put subtitles on Traders Quebec. I would watch it all. And it's Jacob Tierney who does Heated Rivalry. Like, come on, gang. Like, get this licensed in the US, please. Please. This is a great question. I soft answered this on my last one too. And Buddy System chiming in, yeah, calling me out. Will I write a male romance with all the 911 and Heated Rivalry inspiration? I would. I am not eyeing that currently. There are complicated factors in the market that I'm very mindful of, and I would want to do both. And it's partly the thing of like, building a writing brand where you start versus where you can kind of expand. And so I'm definitely starting in still queer, but male female romance. And then I would love to expand. I have one specific idea that is straight up fire. I have told my agent about it. I know it's straight fire and I would like to write it, but it's just, it really depends on kind of, I mean, am I going to sell a romance? I hope so. I hope I sell my male female romance and get a book deal and like can like push my career in that direction, but I don't know what's going to happen. And yeah, buddy system, peer pressuring me. Thank you. I would like to, because like, I mean, I'm not being subtle about it. Like I've been a slasher since I was in my early 20s. Like I've, you know, been in and out of slash fandoms for a very long time. Like it's definitely, I'm not a stranger to this world. And I was a very weird teenager. I watched Queer as Folk, like OG US and UK, but with my mother, like queer stuff. Heated Rebel was a bop because I saw all the quaff references and I felt very seen. I was like, this just Brian Kinney. Oh, I love him so much. A broken, messy man. I haven't read this, but I do know about it. One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware, a Love Island-esque thriller. I do need to read it. My trick is, and I kind of go in stages, and this might be relevant to other people watching who are aspiring writers or currently writing. On some books, I can't read anything close to my premise without serious fear that I'm going to not steal's the wrong word, but it's really easy to be influenced when you're consuming media, good and bad. So like I'm super wary of accidentally aping other writers. I like to kind of, there's like a sacredness to the creative process, but at the same time, you obviously have to consume things that are within the realm of what you're writing. So, but meaning it's a delicate balance. And with a lot of I didn't really have that problem with thrillers. I could read a million thrillers and write thrillers and never felt that way. With romance, I was a little bit careful. I have a couple comp titles for the one that I already finished, and I'm reading them now because I didn't want to read them before. That was intentional. It's like, I don't want to copy anything accidentally or otherwise. And I'm not sure. I'm like with reality TV, I'm also sort of leaning that way, that I don't want to read a bunch of books that have done the trope. There are some really good romance ones that I know have done it, including some that have come out recently. And I'm still figuring out if I want to read them and when I want to read them. And then in the thriller realm, yeah, that's one that I have heard of and thought about reading. Here's a question. Tips for building community / writer friends that actually work. Oh gosh, if only, you know, I can definitely talk about this in general. I don't know if I have like magic suggestions. I'll say that it's hard. It's a process and you kind of have to, okay, briefly, let me just show peer pressure in the chat. Thank you. I know. Okay. Yeah, I might eventually. I will say reading Heated Rivalry definitely like, look, I could absolutely write a male and I know that it would slap, but no question in my mind. I just haven't yet. Anyway, building community with writer friends. So it's going to depend on your stage, and it's going to, there's going to be growing pains. Like I'm not an expert at it. I do have some very good friends in my writer community, and I'm so grateful for them. But I'm hardly like I can't preach and be like, I'm so good at making great writer friends. I've made so many mistakes along the way, and I've had stops and starts. So the disclaimer of, it's not you. It's actually really hard to find and create that community and sustain that community. It does take a lot of work, and there's dumb luck to it too, because just finding where like the creative energy is on the same level and your styles mesh and the timing works out, and like you also have similar, I think it's important to have similar business aspirations, just because like it's such a crazy industry, and jealousy is also a huge part of it. So you have to kind of like be really like confident, I guess is kind of the word, but not really. But you have to be very sure of what you want and what you're doing, to not let some of the bad mind stuff get to you, but also you will be surrounded by people who can't manage that well, and it's just so messy. But building community writer friends, that actually works. Okay. Well, for starters, in the beginning especially, you do have to put yourself out there. A lot of it is trial and error of just like, who do I vibe with? And the starting point there is really your books. There's a ton of value in having, like a ton actually. I recommend having friends where you don't actually exchange writing, where you're not necessarily critique partners. There's value in having friends where you just are moral support for each other, of like you're going through similar things, like you're querying at the same time, or like you have agents and you're on sub, you're in a debut group, et cetera, et cetera. And there's like a sacredness to not reading each other's books, because then it never comes into the picture whether you like each other's writing, because that can get really, really awkward. But in the beginning, I actually think it's critical to know that you like people's writing, and that you are on a similar like wavelength and level, and that you have professional respect for each other, but that you can help each other. Because I think in those earliest relationships, it's really the critique exchange that you all should need. And you're going to grow as a writer by doing those exchanges, and giving freely of yourself and also receiving. And in a lot of those early feelers and reach outs and exchanges, it's gonna go so poorly. It's like dating. You'll be ghosted sometimes. Like your critique styles aren't gonna match. You're gonna exchange something and discover that you hate it and you don't know how to say it, and it's like you're gonna have that awkwardness. And then part and parcel with that, for building community, I really do think it is important to have similar aspirations, just because it is like, it doesn't have to be exclusive. It doesn't mean that you are trad and you can't have friends who are indie. I actually think that's like a good, like, similar track to have if you're both seriously pursuing professional writing. But like, it's the difference usually, like, because my examples are only trad, because that's like the circles I've been in. But like, if you take doing all the polishing and work on your book to get it good enough to get an agent really, really seriously, you need to be surrounded by people who feel the same way, who are making the same time for it, who are making similar sacrifices, who, aren't just going to blow smoke up your ass, and are going to give you real constructive criticism and will receive that in return. Like, and like, that's the person, and who's not going to make it weird. Like, if you're querying and you need to like vent to someone, and like, I think it's important to have that. And also later, that said, I am not a fan of ditching friends who are behind you or whatever. I don't like that social climbing bullshit. I have friends who haven't finished a book, and I've known them for a very long time. I have friends who have queried and haven't gotten an agent yet. I have friends who have agents and haven't sold books. Like, I'm always additive. I'm always expanding my writer community, which is what I personally recommend. Though your trick is you're not going to have bandwidth for everyone, and that can be a little bit tricky. There are people you will naturally stop talking to, and it's neither person's fault, and you just have to kind of go with it. So be additive in your friend circles. And just always be mindful of who you're talking to. That is my other tip. And in adding to the whole like additive thing. So if you get to a new level, you have your old friends, but sometimes you do need new friends to talk to about your new problems. Because something that I have experienced and I have also seen is a friend should be happy for you no matter what, but that doesn't mean that your friend isn't going to be going through it and isn't going to be having feelings. And sometimes you do have to be sensitive to the idea that it might be gauche to complain about what might be perceived as first world problems or silver spoon. That's the wrong metaphor, but like champagne problems to someone who hasn't reach that next stage. So I am always very, very mindful of complaining about traditional publishing. And there's so much to complain about as a multi-published author to someone who hasn't published a book. And I'm sure I've sometimes messed that up with friends. And I hope they know that I know that I'm a dick and that I'm sorry. But like, it's the reason why some people do choose to only be friends with people who are on a certain level. And again, it's not my jam. If I like you, I'm going to be friends with you. I don't really care if you're published or whatever. But you do have to be mindful of where people are, because I never want to be the worst part of someone's day. I never want to be the reason that they feel down on themselves. Now, mind you, there is a way to talk about your problems with a friend, because the other thing, I have been the friend in the lower level with friends who have, gotten cool publishing things before me. I have talked to some of them, like, don't cut me off because you're worried about hurting my feelings. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I want to be there for you and all the things. So I think there has to be communication in both ways, and learning how to healthily manage your jealousy. Jealousy is natural. You're going to feel jealous. It's going to come and it's going to go. And just, does that help? Does that help? I don't know what's helpful. It's a mixed bag. It can go so many different ways. And in general, like, this is just friend advice. I put this in the Ivies because I have learned this and I feel this and I believe it. In general, some friendships are very situationally specific and they exist in a moment in time and then they end, and that's okay. No one's a good guy or a bad guy when that happens. I believe in that firmly. I also believe in we have different friends in different avenues of our life who fulfill different roles, and we do that for other people as well. Like, there's not everyone is going to be your deepest, bestest friend who, does therapy for you and you do therapy for them and you can tell them everything. You can be completely vulnerable, and that's okay. You might have friends where, like, you are just good weather friends and that's okay. And you have your, like, I don't like the word. I mean, I do like the word tea. Obviously I use it, but you might have your friends where you're like, you're kikiing about the industry or whatever, and that's fun. But be wary, because if the entire basis of your friendship is just complaining or gossip, like, it's not always me at my best self when that's the sole content of a friendship. And that's more of a professional relationship. That is more of an acquaintanceship with someone who is in the same business with you. And that is also technically okay, but is that a friend? You have to kind of evaluate levels of relationship, and how much you share with different people. And know that no one's perfect. And I've seen a lot of misunderstandings. I've participated in misunderstandings, and I try to give people a lot of grace whenever possible, because humans are messy and complicated. You never know what someone's going through unless you ask them, but you don't always have to ask them. This is a good question. Since I'm back in my romance era, would I ever consider writing a retelling in the adult space? I don't know. Maybe. I did have some that I thought about doing still in YA that just didn't happen because I moved my career in another direction, that I think are still probably better as YA, but I have thought about it. In adult, I just don't have anything that, like, really sparks for me so far. In adult, on a retelling level, but maybe. I mean, never. I'm a never say never kind of girl. You never know where inspiration is going to come from. This is just piping in on community building. I went to a whole event for fiction creators, networked with other authors, but nobody I reached out to followed up. The best you've had is in NaNoWriMo meetups. Yeah, I do think that venue, I don't really go to official networking events because I think that there's like I'm sure they're great, but same thing with writing groups. That I am not surprised. I imagine they can be hit or miss. Like, people who are all like going there to like get something out of it, that it's not always going to like work. But when you're all like essentially on the same level, or throwing yourself into a specific passion project like NaNoWriMo, like an in-person meetup like that, I that totally tracks. Like, I've always had the best luck on Reddit. On Twitter, when I went on Twitter. I don't go on Twitter anymore. Back in the day, blogs, when we still like all read writer blogs, I had good luck there. And then like debut groups, and then meeting people at in-person events, not networking events, like book festivals and stuff. That's where you make like an in-person connection and you know that you vibe on the same level. Really helpful, including also regular book events, just like going to book events at bookstores. I've made friends at those, like really good friends at those. Writing questions. Best tips for pitching a novel. Ooh, this is a fun one, and I'm going to put the lower third back on while I think about this and answer your question. For anyone who's new to joining here. Best tips for pitching a novel. I love an elevator pitch. And I guess some people call them log lines. I like to think of them as elevator pitches, though. Like if you only had, they say 30 seconds, but it's barely 30 seconds. It's like 10 seconds, 10 to 20 seconds in an elevator with someone. Let's say they're like a, not that you should do this if you corner an editor in an elevator, but they're an editor or whatever, or a movie person. How would you pitch your book? I like, in part and parcel with that, I always like to have my comps like ready in my mind. And when I'm developing a concept, I like to figure out how I'm going to pitch it. And that's part of what tells me, because I'm very marketing forward, and you don't have to be marketing forward in writing books. And I also write commercial fiction. So I just want to disclaim, this is easier for me because of the types of books I write. This might be more challenging depending on the kind of book that you're writing, but I still like to have that very top of mind, something like pithy and catchy. Book comps and media comps. I love a good media comp, and just kind of like the shorthand way to pitch it, to, you just want their eyebrow to raise a bit and go, ooh, how does that work? Sometimes that's a trope. It can vary book to book. So like the pitches for my books, Brightly Burning was always Jane Eyre in space. Bam, that's it. That's all I needed. That's all it was. And just having that ready. And like, so that's not even 10 seconds. I can rattle that off in 2 seconds, and that's the book. For the Stars We Steal, well, it was technically Persuasion in Space. The real like elevator pitch there was Jane Austen meets The Bachelor in space. Like I threw in that bachelor thing to kind of get at the like courtship ritual that I introduced to it. They'll say like I love that book, but I don't know if it's my strongest like pitchable book. But the Bachelor thing, I threw in that at some point. I actually think my editor might have come up with that. The Ivies, competitive college admissions with murder. Bam, that's it. Obviously, I have longer pitches for all of these, but I like to have like something really short, really pitchy. It's predicated on saying it out loud, though these went into my queries or sub packages when I needed to do it. Then for Pretty Dead Queens, I did have a pithy pitch. My shorthand for that is so niche that like I always have my books that I love, and it's funny that I am very fond of The Stars We Steal, and I'm very fond of Pretty Dead Queens, and I actually think they're my least pitchable books. But for me, it was like why a fucked up Murder She Wrote homage was kind of like my, like when I, especially when I talk to mystery readers, like I would use the Murder She Wrote aspect of it, like meta fucked up Murder She Wrote YA novel. And then The Bitter End was, and then There Were None meets Gossip Girl. I like that one too. So that one is like book, media property. The adult romance is trope based. Honestly, depending on the person I'm talking to, like I just say male escort romance trope, and that's all I need for some people. I have a longer pitch for that one that I will keep closer to my vest until it sells. But yeah, it's I also, so this my pitch for my romance novel is pretty bonkers. The full pitch is pretty bonkers. Don't be afraid if you're writing high concept commercial fiction to be a little bit bonkers in your pitch. Like make it sound wild, because what you want them to go is like, how the hell does that work? You're hooking them in, you're intriguing them. And then the reality TV one, yeah, it's Unreal. Like if Unreal were a romance novel, basically. I mean, that show had romance in it, but not happily ever after type romance. So, but for anyone who's seen that show, that kind of gives them a baseline to get an idea of a vibe. And I do like it when pitches do give a sense of vibe. That's my advice. So in fairness, like if you don't have a balls to the wall, crazy high concept commercial pitch, maybe don't have a crazy pitch. But yeah, that's like how I craft them. I literally think, how can I pitch this to someone in 5 seconds or less? Works. What's great is once I have it, I can do it on panels. I can do it to random people who I meet, like, and I'm not perfect at it, but that's kind of my MO. Yeah, does that help? I hope that helps. Oh gosh, this is a great question, but like there's some topics I can talk about on the fly, and I have to think about this. Hilarious outtakes from my writing. I mean, I've done really stupid stuff. Actually, one just did fly into my head. I think this is hilarious, that I did something this stupid on my last book, On the Bitter End. Like, I laugh about it. It's very funny. Because how did I get over a year into the writing process? Like, not multiple drafts, because it took me forever to finish it, but I got real deep into that thriller. And I am aware a guy came up with a whole construction for why there's no Wi-Fi or any like phone signal. The phones go down, power, because I was like, I have to isolate these teenage characters, trap them on a mountain. And why did I get like over a year into the process? Book was almost done. And my editor points out, I love her so much. She goes, I had a whole subplot of them checking Instagram DMs. And she goes, they can't do that. There's no Wi-Fi. You have to laugh. Sometimes you just like, it's like your brain just like doesn't work. So yeah, I had to rework that. It worked out. I came up with a solution, but it was kind of hilarious, like pretty dumb of me. That was funny. Let's see. Have you thought about going back to sci-fi or doing something in the fantasy space? Yes and no. I have some old ideas, back burner ideas that I'm still fond of. I'm not actively thinking about going back to it, but it has occasionally kind of popped into my head because it is such a specific mindset. And there are things about writing contemporary fiction that is just so freeing. I love my early books, including the two that didn't sell, which were speculative. They were grounded speculative, but still speculative. I love world building. Don't get me wrong. I like forcing my brain to think about things, but there's something so freeing, especially from a voice perspective for me, of like not having to worry about pop culture references and not having to worry about slang. There's something really nice about that. And basing it in the real world, but extrapolating, because I tend to create fake places in the real world. But yeah, sometimes I do scratch at my brain. One that I'm pretty sure I've talked about this before. I really wanted to do a Sabrina retelling in space. Like, Sabrina is one of my favorite romance stories. It's a banger. And it just didn't work out. And I still think it would work really well with a sci-fi twist. It's something that a longtime friend and we kind of like brainstormed on it. And there was one point where like she was going to write she was going to write a fanfic pastiche version of it. Like she and I were volleying that idea back and forth. And then like later, me writing novels, I thought of like my own completely different take and how I would do it as an original novel. And it does kind of go around in my brain. And then I do just love a good like messed up speculative twist to something. And I also have like a deep old idea that I haven't completely thrown out that would be like a paranormal romance. I'm not opposed to that. So maybe, but not in the immediate sense. Oh, and then my first ever book that I completed that didn't sell, and it was a YA. I've wanted to reconceptualize it for adult, but the trick is the core of my ideas are really funny. And it's why I caution people not to assume that people steal from you if you see something that's similar to what you've written. Because the longer you write and the longer you're kind of doing this, the more you see spooky author hive mind happen. I've seen this happen so many times where a book has ended up being published that is like legit an idea I had or something I wrote, but that wasn't published. And then someone else does like a take on it that just proves to me that the writer hive mind is a thing and that nothing is original. Obviously, execution matters, but that can happen. So there's one, I had wanted to reconceptualize my first YA novel that didn't get published into adult, and then someone kind of did it. I still might, because I'm attracted to time travel stories specifically. It was a time travel novel. Same thing with my second one. I did something with superpowers, like kind of, and I might want to reconceptualize that into adult at some point, but I don't know. Yes and no. I kind of get like hyper fixations where I just become like obsessed, especially with a genre space. And I just haven't been in a sci-fi fantasy mindset in a while. I've been very, obviously, thrillers, and now very, very romance. I mean, romance is always there. This is great. Any advice you would give a version of you from 10 years ago? Isn't that such an interesting thought experiment for any of us? Me 10 years ago, gosh, I was a baby. 10, wait, what year is it? Wait, how old am I? Okay, 10, I had to think about it. 10 years ago, me had finished her first book. And it didn't actually, that is the first YA novel, the one that I finished, but that, yeah. Oh my gosh. Actually, 10 years ago, me had just finished Brightly Burning. Wow. Because when I think about like what advice would you give to your younger author self, I think about like novel me and what I would say to myself. But 10 years ago, me literally was a year away from selling my first book. But I was, and so what advice would I give to myself? I actually want to know in the chat, like any of you who have been writing for some time, it's partly buy me time so that I can think about this. What advice would you give to yourself? I would say in general, I would always offer kindness to my past self. Like if I had a time machine and I could just travel back in time, I'd also give a little tough love to past versions of myself, especially my teenage self. My God, if I could get my hands on teenage me, oh, we'd have a fun conversation. But yeah, 10 years ago, me on the cusp of kind of selling. That's a great question. I mean, I definitely tell her, start that YouTube channel. 10 years, I started my YouTube channel 9 years ago. I started it after I sold my book. So 10 years ago, me, I wasn't even thinking about it yet, but I would have maybe pushed her in that direction. I don't necessarily regret, I'm not a regrets person, but I might have told my 10 years ago self about to get into publishing me to, it sounds crazy, but maybe withhold even more of myself from people. Keep a little more sacred. And I'd have no career. Is it possible to withhold more of myself? Just because like once you put stuff out there, it's not yours anymore. And like there is really something sacred about who you are to yourself and your writing process and like how much you give to other people versus what you can give to books. But again, I'm a no regrets kind of person. I kind of had to learn my own lessons. Similarly, I might advise myself to be a bit more circumspect in making writer friendships. Just to the earlier topic of there are a lot of emotional ups and downs when you're kind of going on a vulnerable path, and creative mixed with business is a vulnerable path. I don't know, but I don't do regrets. Okay. So, you asked about fantasy and you asked about romance, and I brain farted and completely lied to you. In fact, I said this on the last stream. I would/will, possibly in a more immediate sense, write a romance. That counts. Because 10 years ago, me was percolating and working on a concept that I didn't figure out for YA. Maybe I would tell that past version of myself what I have now figured out on how to make that book work, first of all, though I don't think I would have been ready then. But 2, I might have told me not to abandon it for so long because the industry would come back around. Like if I'd been ready with that book 3 years ago, I'd be golden. I might be a bestseller, baby. It's never too late. Write the books that you want to write when you come to writing them. I will write it at some point and it'll still slap, but that's maybe I would have given myself that pragmatic, it's the Back to the Future almanac cheat. Maybe I would have given myself that pragmatic advice that eventually new adult romantasy would actually be a thing. Be ready, be prepared. Costume romance will come back. Historical costume romance will come back. Write it. If you're writing a character-driven romance, how can you write internal conflict that doesn't have to do with the relationship? How important is that? That's a great question. I think you can do this a couple of different ways, and I've seen it done different ways. And I will say, I don't want to make definitive statements. I've read a couple of romances recently, adult romances, that straddle a weird line between contemporary romance, rom-com, and women's fiction. And I'm really not sure how I feel about it as a reader. Especially if the first half delivers great rom-com and then it turns into women's fiction, I'm not sure how I feel about it. I'll say that those books and those authors make the choice to basically create entire character arcs and conflicts that have nothing to do with the romance. They're secondary to the romance, and they do technically fuse them with the romance, but I have question marks about how they fuse them with the romance. And you should give your characters fully fleshed out, lived in lives and things that are going on that aren't all about romance, because that's being a person. But so there's one tack, is what I'm meaning to say, where you can decide that they also have issues with friendships, that they have a conflict with their sister or something with their parent, or their fatal flaw is X and it affects them in their job, and all these different avenues, and also the romance, and or like you can give them a serious like conflict point with illness or mental health. Like there are a million different ways to do it. I will say personally, and this is actually me talking to publishing, not even to writers. I don't have a problem with women's fiction or a book that is just a novel, but please market it correctly to me, because I have to be in a mindset to read a more serious book personally. So I just don't like the bait and switch of a cute illustrated cover that's sold to me as a rom-com and then it turns into beaches. Like, especially as someone with a dead mom, like, don't hit me with cancer out of nowhere, please. Anyway, that's one way. And it's a way that works for a lot of authors and their readers who really like that. My personal ethos, I am writing contemporary romances. They are contemporary romances. And I like internal conflicts that directly dovetail as much as humanly possible with the romance. So my thought is to come up with core wounds and core wants for the character that both work for romance with the main romance arc and outside of it, that they kind of have a dual function. So that's the thing I mentioned. And then it's coming up with ways to have the love interest have a core wound and a core want that both complement and conflict with whatever you've designed for your main character. I like to do both. So like this thing affects them in their career, and it's gonna bite them in the ass in the romance, if that makes sense. That's how I like to approach it. And also just, this is just a human thing too. The things that have formed us and affected us as people are going to affect us in multiple avenues of our life, including in a romance. Though I will say that romance is a very specific relationship type, that it's actually kind of fun how you can do things and have them react in ways that they would only do and react. They can have all their shit together and every avenue of their life would be a mess at romance. I kind of like that contrast personally. Does that help? I never know if anything I'm saying helps. And that's a little bit nebulous. But that's my general thought process. I like to think of them as like a whole person, but also with romance. Yeah. Do you have any big / fun publishing goals, or do you not think of goals as much this far into your career? Oh, my bucket list, my dream list is a mile long, because so little that people would consider like author bucket list things have actually happened to me yet. And I don't mean that in a complaining way, only in a mildly complaining way, in a way you have to laugh at. That's why I cling so dearly to my award nominations that I never expected to get. That was never on my list because I didn't ever think it would happen. I didn't think I was that kind of writer. And I'm like, how come the one thing that I didn't, I guess in that sense, let publishing surprise you, let your life surprise you, never expected that. Only thing that has happened. Funny. So like most people, I have pie in the sky goals. And I also know acutely, I have made a video about how you shouldn't have these as goals because, in fairness, I just claimed dreams, not goals. Dreams are fine if you make them a goal, but it's not anything you can directly, like you can't take direct action to achieve. That's kind of the line. So yeah, I will call them dreams, not goals. Bucket list stuff. Of course I want to be a bestseller. I want to hit a bestseller list. That would be amazing. The validation in that, my God, the validation, and also just the fact that it's like a snowball effect kind of thing, to like establishing a solid career so that you can support yourself with writing, maybe as like a pie in the sky dream. I mean, like everyone, but like truly, because I work in the industry and like I'm a film and TV kid, like I watch a disgusting amount of television. I wanted to be a film critic at one point. I read a ton, obviously, but I consume more TV and film than I read, just by sheer like hours in the day. Like it's easier to spend however many hours, but watching a TV show, I read pretty. Anyway, I read a lot, but I definitely watch more film and television. I want a TV show specifically. I'll take a film. I don't care. I want something of mine to be made into something. I want it so badly. It would be a dream come true. And I would want to, if I could, actually work on it. Like if there's a TV show, I would love to be in the room. Though like sometimes you have to compromise. You can't have that, but you can be a consulting producer. Like dreams, I want these things so badly, especially because I love and respect the medium and recognize that it's different from books. I think I'd be really easy to work with. Please, someone choose me, love me. I'd be great to work with. I don't mind if you change things because I actually understand how the medium works. Please. I want to be in Target. I want to be in Target / big box store. I want that distribution like opportunity to be in, especially and particularly in paperback, to be in front of people who are like me at an accessible price point, because that was the kid I was. Though frankly, I wasn't really buying books when I was younger because I didn't have a ton of expendable income. It was a very big deal to buy a book. So I guess to that end, more library stuff would be fun. Like if I could like win an ALA award or something, because or get like a junior library guild or whatever, the equivalent would be in adult, like something that like helps me with accessibility, for readers who aren't rich, basically, kind of, I would love that. I did actually, this was really nice to talk about things that you do get. On my debut, I did get to talk to a room full of librarians at an ALA conference. That was an opportunity I had with Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, and that was great. That was really meaningful to me because I couldn't really afford books as a kid, and the library was my lifesaver. Let's see, what else? Fun goals. I mean, Target for sure. And like this isn't even fun. It's just like the bars and hell thing. I want 1-star trade review, one for any book. That's all I want. Not all I want. Goals and dreams are a moving goalpost, though. You're always going to have a new one if something great happens to you. But my bar is in hell, and I will take anything. Anything. Yeah. Because what are creative people if not desperate little, creatures seeking validation? Isn't it sad? It's a little sad, but we are. That's what we want. Yeah. Let's see. Just some like wisdom from the chat. Based stuff I was talking about. Progress isn't linear, and don't be afraid to scrap things. Yes. Always keep writing fun and don't give up. Yeah. In general, like this industry is so rough. No matter what path you choose, like it's rough. There are a lot of rough components. You always have to come back to liking the writing. If you don't enjoy doing it, if it's a slog, you're not going to make it, because it's there. The industry, and anytime where you combine business with creative, I think the universe, the business, etc., will go out of its way, it will feel sometimes, to make you hate yourself and to make you feel like you're not enough, you'll never be enough, you suck, etc., etc. It comes from all sides. I think that publishing, I think that someone had a meeting at some point in the past, is just like, and they all got together and were like, let's brainstorm the most creative ways that we can make authors feel invisible and like worthless. And then they've just instituted a framework to do that over and over again to the vast majority of us. You will feel crazy. And so you have to actually like writing books. You got to enjoy the suffering, because otherwise, why are you doing it? You have to enjoy it to some degree. And I do enjoy it, luckily. Because I'm a crazy person. I enjoy more than I thought I would, like when I was really young. And so if you feel this way, I'm just validating your feelings. Because drafting is hard. Drafting was always hard for me. But I loved editing. I loved beta reading for people. And I had this idea in my head, especially when I was, a journalism major, like, oh, I'll be an editor. I like helping other people achieve their dreams. I still really enjoy that. Because I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think I had what it took. It was like a self-doubt kind of thing. I'm in a safety blanket of like being like, well, if I'm not good enough at this thing, I can be good at this thing. And I really surprised myself how much I genuinely love writing. Still don't love drafting, but I love it more than I used to. I've learned to love the hard, basically, but I love it. I love it more than I thought I would. Like, because there was also a brief period, or like a long time ago, talk about giving advice to your 10 years ago self. I might have told myself this, where I also thought I could be an agent. Like maybe if I don't have what it takes to be a writer, I be a good agent because I genuinely love helping people. And I still think I'd be a good agent. But I have shocked myself in discovering I like just being a writer. I really want to go. It's also why I've done less of the YouTube channel. I just want to be an author. I want to go all in on the writing and dedicating time and effort to the craft because I enjoy it and it matters to me and the work is worth it, even if I haven't received the validation or I don't often receive the validation. To some degree, it almost doesn't matter if I receive the validation because I enjoy the work and I'm proud of the work, if that makes sense. Like that, it has to come from you at a certain point, and not external validation. And I would like to posthumously and profusely thank my mother for being a parent who refused to ever reward me for good grades. That was a no in my household because the work is its own reward. Thanks, Mom. She wasn't wrong. She set me up for how hard publishing is, how hard writing is, because very often you will not get an ice cream treat for A's on your report card. In fact, you will rarely get diddly squat for doing the thing you are supposed to do. So thanks, Mom. Let's see. This is also a really good comment that I would echo. I would tell myself what genres I enjoy writing because it took a while to find ones that were a good fit. Advice to your 10 years ago self. That is great advice to yourself and to anyone. I ended up on the same journey. I think a lot of, if there are people in the chat who are watching now who haven't finished a book, who haven't figured out that first book, hardest to write, or have written something and it didn't work and they're still trying to like find their footing, if your goal is publishing and it just hasn't worked out. It took me a while to like really actually figure out both what I wanted to write, but also what I was good at writing, and to learn kind of my strengths and where I might be best served. And mind you, I didn't make those moves in a hyper calculated way. And it's hilarious because I know the way that I talk about writing, I have given this impression to people, like, you can't make me do something I don't want to do. Like, that is just facts. I'm way too mood driven. I'm a mood reader and I'm a mood writer. But it was also, there's always in the back of my mind, like, well, and also if you do this thing and you make this move, it might be easier to, get a book published because of the market. That's always in my head. But so it was like a combo plate of like, you might actually be better suited to writing these types of books, but also you might find better opportunities writing those books. But it was like a real journey, and something that like feedback I heard with the Ivies, from someone who knew me really well, who knew my writing well, I should say. They said that it was really obvious reading it that I had like found my footing, and that like this is after writing my romance retellings, that like this, the voice and like the tone and like the character, like, and yeah, like it's like I'd found, like, it all came together. But I feel the same way about romance too, in that advice to yourself: find what genres you enjoy writing, and it can take a while to find the ones that are the right fit. Yes, you can also circle back around. That actually goes to the advice to past self: progress isn't linear, and don't be afraid to scrap things. Progress is not linear, and you can circle back around. The first book I ever tried to write was romance. Didn't work. A paranormal romance. Didn't work. And then I tried contemporary romance. And the fun thing about that, I'm talking like 2008 era me, like long time ago. Didn't work. I couldn't get past chapter 1, and I never figured out the plot of that contemporary romance. But I knew that the idea was really good. Backburnered it. In my book that I hope to go on sub with soon, it's a little bit meta. My character is an author. How tacky, right? How cliche. It's fine. We all have an author, meta author book in us, or meta journalist book in us. It's really common that we write characters who are also creative. I was like, shoot, this character has to have written books. I got to come up with fake books to go within my book. And I was like, I never figured out the plot to that book. I will pretend that this fake author has figured out the plot to that book. So I got to recycle my good idea for a book I never wrote in 2008. It is now a fake book that this author has written. I hope she figured out the plot. I'm still not 100% on it, but it's now part of that book, which is kind of fun. But also just that I have come full circle all the way back around to contemporary romance. It was what I was thinking. Well, I guess technically Yeah, the first book I tried to write was paranormal romance. Then I tried contemporary romance. Then I briefly tried adult historical mystery. I was so out of my depth. I was in my mid-20s and that was never going to happen. I recognized that I was out of my depth. I still might write that book. It was a really good idea. And then I tried dystopian YA and that didn't work. Then I wrote time travel YA. That was the first book I completed. But it definitely feels very full circle to me with the progress isn't linear thing to have come back to contemporary romance. I was a romance girly alongside being a thriller girly. But my thing with thrillers is for years I didn't think I was smart enough to write a mystery. And again, like progress isn't linear. Then I surprised myself. I was like, what come back to this? Didn't think I could write a mystery. Figured it out. So like, don't sell yourself short. Actually, yeah, that would have been good advice to give myself 10 years ago. We always come back to a point. Just like a fun question. Do you like duet narration for audiobooks? I do. I do a lot. That said, I'm not as squicked as some people are by like, it's usually female narrators who also do the guy voices. It doesn't bother me as much as it bothers some people unless she's really bad at it. But usually they do like tuning in the audio that I'm fine with it. But I love when they cast a guy and a girl, especially if it's dual POV or if it's multi and they cast multiple cast members. I do like that a lot. One that I read that I thought did it really, really well. Bridget Kemmerer's Defy the Night has dual, and I liked both of them a lot. That was the one where I thought it was done really, really well. Let's see. Happy Galentine's Day to you. Happy Galentine's Day to all, regardless of whether you're a gal. This is our day. I used to be jaded about Valentine's Day, and now I just don't care. It doesn't bother me. It's society that tries to make you feel bad about Valentine's Day, but ultimately it's just another day. Do you have any tips for falling back in love with the writing process? I've had some major writer's block and would love to just enjoy the process again. Yeah, that's hard. And I've definitely been there, even though famously I have said in a video, I don't believe in writer's block. I believe in creative blocks. I just think they're different. Meaning I think that you can burnout more than block. I think that everyone burns out. I just don't like the mythical creature of writer's block as like some like unseen force that stops you from writing. You can technically always write, but it might not always vibe. And I've been there. So I've been there and I've approached it in a couple of different ways. Like my generic answer to that I have done is just allow yourself to take a break, not write, refill your well, whatever that means to you. Like watch movies, TV, read a bunch of books, just to give yourself permission not to be in the creative space. And I usually do that between books anyway. I tend to burn bright and fast on books, and I get really exhausted when I reach the finish line, and I need a break anyway. And I like to give ideas time to percolate, but actual like writer burnout with worry that you're broken, etc. Yes, I have experienced that. Most recently. And this is just a solution word for me. I'm not saying you have to do this, so this is what worked for me. This is what I did, and here we are today. The bitter end really took a lot out of me. That book was really hard to write. It took almost 2 years. Start to finish, drafting, editing, etc. I did a lot of rewrites on it. It was just a really hard book to write. And I knew I wasn't going to throw myself into another YA. I knew I was going to pivot to adult. And I worked on a couple of adult thrillers, and I like what I wrote, but I hit roadblocks on those too. I liked the writing, but I didn't get to that kind of chaos state, obsessive state that I need to like really power through. This might not work for you, but I'll tell you what I did. I binge watched over 100 episodes of 911 in 3 weeks. I let myself refill the well for sure. And then I threw myself off a cliff into fandom for the first time in over 15 years. I read millions and millions and millions and millions of words of fan fiction obsessively in a very short period of time. I wrote fan fiction that we won't talk about. But basically it was the giving myself permission to write something completely different, out of left field, purely for fun, for free, anonymously, which is nice, with a completely different aim. Fan fiction, because I don't do gen, respect to people who like gen, but fan fiction is romance. And that's essentially what it's been. I just threw myself into it. I went full romance pilled escapism. It's the escapism thing. And is it a coincidence that this all happened in October, November 2024? No, it's not. Escapism brain. And I let myself fall into the obsession, like fully, with complete permission not to do any writing, like professional writing, until I felt so guilty. It took about 6 months. Guilty that I wasn't working on anything sellable. Guilt works for me. That and the itch. I talked about it at the very beginning of the stream, where and I felt it last week, and I'm throwing myself into a new book. I started to get it's like guilt part itch. It's the guilt of you should probably be writing something. And it's the itch of, I really want to explore these characters and these scenarios, and I want to figure them out. I want to read it basically, and shoot, I have to write it first. I'm so mad. Reading the thing that you want to write definitely helps. And what definitely tickles my brain is crazy, super high concept, whether that's murder or romance. And currently I'm on a romance bend. And so I did a hard pivot. And honestly, it was the same thing. I guess technically that's what I did with the Ivies, that I burned out a bit on writing YA sci-fi romance retellings. There was a lot of kind of emotional stuff that was beating me up with those. And the Ivies was just an invitation to do something totally crazy and totally different and frothy and high concept. So my advice is basically to do whatever you need to do. Binge, change what you're doing. Put whatever you're working on ice. That's what I've done with I was working on a specific adult thriller, and it's just on ice right now. It's not abandoned forever. And I basically gave myself the permission to throw myself into whatever I could finish. And that was a romance. I just embraced feeling a little bit crazy girl about an idea, and doing the thing, going a little bonkers. That helped me. That worked for me. Different things are going to work for different people, but it also depends on the source of your block, your burnout. Sometimes life just gets in the way, and you have to give yourself the grace to be okay with it. That's also an option for sure. Let's see. The perennial question: with all you know about publishing, do you think an author would have better luck going traditional indie? This is so circumstantial, and it's so specific. Certain kinds of books do better in trad, no question about it. It's harder to get published in trad, but there are just certain distribution chains that don't work in indie, just because of the nature, because the indie and trad have different audiences and have different reading trends and habits and distribution models. And then there are certain things that do better in indie, or I should say can do better in indie. And trad is always going to have an advantage of distribution models and money, and brand vetting, because there are readers who will only read trad published books, and there are, for the most part, there are avenues of promotion that are only available to traditionally published books. But that's why I think we're seeing so much pipeline of breaks out in indie, does really well in indie, trad picks it up and then blows it up more. That is something that's working, especially in romance, for a reason. It depends on your book, but it depends on you. And I know I've talked about this on the channel, and it's truly, also just briefly, the way that this quote I feel it every day. I love it so much. I put it into my romance novel. Yeah, because why not? It's just such a mood, such a vibe. You as the author, and I've been honest about it. One of the reasons I have never self-published, I know I could. I would kill the game. I have no doubt. If I, it would take such a level of concentration from me. I would go crazy though. Because I don't love marketing me. I do love marketing brain. There is a mode I can switch into. It's my day job that I really like, and I like going hard. I like strategy and analytics and problem solving and logistics. I actually really like all that stuff, but I also know that doing that stuff at any kind of high level fries my brain and fries my creative brain. And my writing mode is so antithetical to that mode. I don't think I can do both. So people who can do both are amazing, and more power to them. Plus, I'm cheap, and I don't like spending money. And when I was first getting published, I didn't have any money. You need capital. You need capital to indie publish well. Part of what publishers have money if they're willing to spend it. We grumble forever for all eternity, but like that is an advantage they have as well, that they have systems in place and capital to push things through that you need. But yeah, I also don't, I still to this day do not write fast enough. Someday, I wish I could. And so specifically because I love romance, like that is the genre that would pull me to potentially indie publish personally. And I think I could probably do it, but I just haven't yet because it's just, if I didn't have my day job, maybe I could throw myself off the cliff, but I can't. So like, it's so person specific that all I can do is talk generally about it and share those thoughts, and encourage people to listen to successful people in both avenues and then make a decision that works best for you. The one thing I will say, it's not a luck thing. I mean, luck is always a factor, but like just a piece of advice that I will always stress, is that something I see, rejection sucks. Like it really hurts. And TradPub is hard. But sometimes the industry's wrong, and sometimes the market is stupid, and sometimes the luck isn't on your side, and there's nothing wrong with you or your book. But sometimes the timing and the market and the gatekeepers they speak and they're not wrong. And the action you have to go to dig into yourself to figure out why something didn't go and how to write something that will, that is where you grow exponentially as a creative artist and in your craft. That'll serve you down the line no matter your publishing path. And I believe in the work and encourage people to do the work. So every time when I do see people who query, like, gosh, I feel like the number I've seen, like why is the magic number 12? Why have I seen so many stories? Like, it's just on Reddit and stuff, or like even people who make videos on YouTube, they queried 12 people and it didn't go. And they give up after a month, maybe 8 weeks top. That hurts me inside because it's hard. It's really hard. And you never know what's going to happen. Some people get agented after a year of querying. They query 100 people. If it's not that book, it's the next book. You learn. I just am always going to be that person who just encourages you to just be really thoughtful. Like if you want trad, really try trad. Or like choose Indian. So I believe everything happens for a reason. I'm so glad none of you saw those embarrassing early books of mine from my 20s. I feel like it all worked out. I'm even moderately embarrassed by my actual debut. That's just natural. I'll just start placing books in Target for you, see if they take the hint, right? I just need the buyer to see how sexy the ivies would look on the shelf. The bitter end would totally look so great at Target. I've got it in the background over there. Oh yeah, I'm always so behind in chat. I read all your thrillers, and I think they do really well as TV shows, especially something like the first season of Cruel Summer. Thank you. That is such that's nice to hear. Like I appreciate that. I agree. I haven't watched Cruel Summer yet, which I know is like you think my TBR is bad. My to watch list is pretty abysmal. That's one that I definitely wanted to watch. See me, choose me, love me, please. Yeah. Okay. Ooh. More. I have a hard time finishing projects. My brain fills in the story and then doesn't want to do the work anymore. That is tricky. That is, I feel that. I've had that happen on some things too, where it's like I'm almost like I do too much of the daydreaming where like I lose steam. Though I like luckily for the most part I want to actually read the thing. I want to discover the story. I don't know if I have good advice for this. I don't even know if you're asking for advice, but I do feel you on this. I'll say that, like, I especially had this on earlier books. Sometimes you just have to find the right one that, like, you do get that steam on, or like maybe maybe you're filling in too much of the story. Like, sometimes the ones that I've really like pushed through on, I had an idea of the end, but I didn't like, I still left a lot of room to change the end. Like, I do like planting, I do like discovery writing for that reason, so that the things that can be nimble, that kind of gives me that excitement that I need. It's like a dopamine hit, like, as you're writing for me. Oh yeah, calling me out, like, affectionate. Yeah, I guess every writer gets one or two meta novels, but yeah, I did that in that one as well. There wasn't a main character, at least. It's real weird writing a main character who is also a writer, because, like, I had to be so conscious of her. Like, I don't want to write me. I don't want my career to be a main character, but at the same time, I knew that there was value in drawing on my experiences, because I've read a lot of meta novels in publishing where bestsellers who were bestsellers on their first books write author characters, and I always find it really interesting when they try to make them not successful, but I can tell that they don't actually know what mid-list author problems are. I'm always like, tell me more about how hard it is. So I did actually have fun drawing on that, but I also had fun giving her a completely different career to mine. So it was kind of, it was challenging but fun. But as you know from my videos, I'm very wary of self-insert characters. I try not to do too much of that, because then you make yourself vulnerable. What I wouldn't give for a Hannibal murder husband's AO heated rivalry. I love the murder husbands trope. More murder husbands. Yeah, in general. I still, like, in my fandoms, haven't figured out how to, like, write my own take on murder husbands. But if I do, like, because there are a couple that exist, especially in Buddy, I was like, if I ever come up with a fresh take, I will write one. But I haven't yet, so alas. Do I have a business plan for my novels? No. In the sense that, I mean, when I pitch them as option marketing, and that kind of helped me, like, position myself, but I don't make any kind of business plan. That's a little bit too getting into the marketing brain weeds, which is likely to kind of pull me out of creative mode. And I try to stay in creative mode as much as possible, so that I'm giving more of myself to the books, which is why I'm so bad at marketing my books. So sorry, not sorry, slightly sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, let's 911. I had this exact same experience with 911. There's just something about those characters. They're so good. And their internal conflicts that work so well, unlocking creative issues I've been struggling with. Yeah. Like, Buck is so, like, I hesitate to call him a masterclass, because I have serious problems with Buck in season 5 and 6, especially 6. If you ignore Buck in season 6, just some of the choices they make with him, so good. I mean, every character. I think Chimney has some really good writing. Like, I mean, Eddie. I think they accidentally did something really interesting with Eddie by doing nothing with Eddie for a really long time. So they've, like, created so many gaps in his character that we can fill them in. He's really, really interesting. But 911 is so good. If you haven't watched it, watch 911. It has been really good food for my writer brain, though, because it's such good long form storytelling, character driven storytelling, that it's food for my writer brain, for sure, especially, like, with archetypal like character work and whatnot. Though to that end, they're so good at it that the few things they've done that I think are out of character really bother me, which is interesting. I really hate season 6, actually, like, overall, of that show, especially Buck. This is I promise I didn't just put this up for the compliment. You genuinely got me started on my writing journey. Yay! Your videos. I'm glad to see your growth. You got me into romance, but I always struggle with writing a reasonable midpoint of the relationship. Yeah, the midpoints are hard. I will say I do think it's a little different with every book, and you can give yourself the freedom for it to be a little bit different with every book. But I'm actually now trying to figure that out. I'm trying to figure out what the midpoint is for this romance that I'm currently working on, because the last one was so different. Because my last one was more slow burn, like my midpoint was a little not obvious. I actually figured it out while I was writing it, but like I knew that they weren't going to figure their shit out till Act 3. And sometimes they figure their shit out in the middle and then you break them up in Act 3. So give yourself the freedom to follow the path that fits your trope and your characters best. Yeah, like don't stress. I mean, stress out if you want to stress out, but maybe don't stress out too much. I've been thinking more about set pieces and kind of like working back. This is the working backwards thing. I've been trying to work more backwards from my end conflict to figure out my mid conflict. So. Do you think fan fiction is really bad? I hear so much negativity around them. You've so many fan fiction story ideas. I write fanfic, so no, I read a lot of fanfic. Look, I think some fanfic is bad, but some writing is bad. Like there's some bad, like atrociously bad original fiction. It's not inherently better because it's original. I think, I mean, I got started in fanfic. I started officially writing fan fiction. I was 14. I was in Buffy fandom. It was very bad. Prior to that, unknowingly, like many kids, I wrote Babysitter's Club fan fiction. I wrote my own Babysitter's Club novel when I was like 9. Also sucked. Not a novel, but I was clearly writing fan fiction. Like, you know, I think a lot of us start out that way. And like I was exclusively a fan fiction writer for over 10 years, thinking I wasn't a good enough writer to ever write a book before I tried writing a book and wrote a book. And I've been original fiction, like obviously still write my own stuff. Obviously we're here. But and then yeah, I went back to fanfic last year, unsurprisingly, having been not unsurprisingly, surprisingly having been out of it for a very long time. And as I said, I found so much freedom writing fan fiction over the last year, just like it's the pros and cons, and I think you just have to recognize the pros and cons. And I have videos about this that some people get very mad at me about, but professional writing and fan fiction writing are not the same. That doesn't mean that fanfic writing can't be very good. Some of it's very good, but they're not typically perfect like novels. Sometimes they are, but they're not typically novels. There are different rules. There's different framework within fan fiction writing and fandom that works for fan fiction writing and fandom, and there's no need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's its own kind of reading experience. But if you do want to professionally write your own novels and have them published, I do think you have to be mindful of pitfalls of fan fiction and the things that work in fan fiction and fandom that don't necessarily work in professional novel writing. Good with the bad. Yeah, I've read some atrocious fan fiction and I've read some phenomenal fan fiction. I will say I do get excited when I do read one where I can tell that they know how to write a novel, and I'm always like, are you a professional writer? But that is rare. I think it's all good. I love fan fiction. And if you have fan fiction ideas, write fan fiction. But I will say, write it as fan fiction. I'm sorry, loud noise outside my apartment. Someone honking. I wonder if there was an accident. I do have complex ideas or feelings and opinions about filing the serial numbers off of fan fiction, agents scouting fan fiction, and not so subtly filing serial numbers off fan fiction. I think it's complicated. I personally, I like my fan fiction to be fan fiction. I like that it stands on its own and it was its own creative expression. And I have done things creatively in fan fiction I don't do in professional novels and probably wouldn't do in professional novels. There's something like beautiful about a crack fic that doesn't really work in novels in professional writing, and I like that freedom. So not everything that you create as fan fiction, even if it's novel length fan fiction, even if it's really popular, needs to be stripped of its component parts to be turned into a trad novel. But that said, some fics do that very well. I'm of many minds about it, but like generally, like write fan fiction for the pure love and joy of writing fan fiction. It is fun. But like I do encourage the work of differentiating between the two and kind of thinking of them as two mediums for yourself. So I found that different from my first book. My second book is much harder to write. Found the only way I could do it is by joining group writing sprints on Zoom to get through it. Yes. Every book is different, and that's part of the delight and challenge of novel writing. Like, you'll have one book that just flows from you, and the next one is like pulling teeth. I think they're all worth it, but sometimes, yeah, they require a different approach. And just generally, notoriously, second books are hard. Second books are so hard, but I will say, like, it's good that you're doing writing sprints. That's definitely something that I definitely turned to a lot when I was trying to push through several of my books. But also know that, like, you did it once, you can do it again and take lessons from finishing that first one. Embrace the hard, I guess, is my only advice, and know that it's normal. It's upsetting, but it's normal. Yeah. What are my feelings about the Buffy reboot? That's a great question. I'm open. Um, I'm open and also freaked out a little in the sense that I am now old enough to have nostalgia bait, reboot nostalgia bait made for me. I don't know how I feel about that. Meaning, is this how Gen X felt about Stranger Things? Probably. I know that wasn't a reboot, but it's literally like pornography for people who grew up in the 80s. And I was like, is that what, like, we're entering like a weird 90s regurgitation cycle where I'm like, am I being pandered to? Um, I'm I'm excited by the creative team. I'm open to the idea. I also struggle slightly, as I think a lot of us do, for whom Buffy was formative. I still am struggling with kind of the legacy of Buffy in light of a lot of the things that we've learned about the creative team and specifically Joss Whedon. It doesn't diminish what Buffy was to me, but I, like a lot of people, I struggle with it. And I haven't done a full rewatch since all of that, but I did a partial rewatch and I still felt a lot of the magic with a lot of the conflict, including like things we've learned about Nicholas Brennan as well. And Xander was my favorite character. And like, I have a lot of mixed feelings about that, given a lot of things. I'm open and I like the idea of reclaiming narrative through new creative teams and kind of moving away from old things, but I'm also like, do we need it? I'm of many minds, but I mean, I'll give it a crack, especially because like I'm curious. But I will say I think it's gonna have to do something really fresh and really good to actually work. Yeah, it's so rare for a rehash of an old property to actually like work in a real way and stand on its own and have something fresh to say. It's gonna be interesting. Yeah, Buffy fandom, what were my ships? These are my dark shame. This is my shame era. I will defend myself in saying that I was a teenager. I was a nerdy teenager who, like, I won't say I had bad taste. I'll say I had specific taste. And that I also would like, I'm going to assume most of the people watching this are younger than I am. And I just need you to know that we did not know what a nice guy was. Capital N, capital G. That concept did not exist. In fact, rape culture as a concept did not exist. So many, like, the 90s were a time, guys. There's so much we didn't know. We were little babies. And then culture developed as it is likely as it is wont to do. So I was a Xander girl, deep shame. So I shipped Buffy Xander. It is what it is. Later, I shipped Buffy Spike, as one does. I hated Angel. I hated Buffy Angel. I never liked the creepiness of the age gap. I know he's a vampire, y'all, but I was a woke teenager before woke existed, except not understanding the concept of nice guys or rape culture yet. Except the thing is, I understood aspects of rape culture because I thought it was really creepy that he'd been watching her since she was like 15 and she was 16 and he was over 200 years old. I didn't like it. I thought it was really creepy. Also, that David Boreanaz was markedly older than Sarah Michelle Gellar. I never liked it. It gave me the ick, and I was so glad when Angel went to a spinoff because I was like, they're better apart. So I shipped Buffy Spike. Yeah. Oh, and I loved Cordelia. Oh, I adored Cordelia. So I actually also shipped Xander Cordelia. I did not ship Xander Willow. I've always found friends to lovers a little bit inert, and I know that's funny given Buffy, but like there's something about like best friends to lovers just never was my jam. So obviously I was very happy when Willow ended up with Tara. I thought that was better. Oh, and I adore Anya, so I also shipped Xander Anya. Like I was glad that Xander Buffy didn't happen. Like I liked the way it developed, but yeah, my deep shame in the early seasons especially was I was a hardcore Buffy Xander shipper. Ugh. Mistakes were made. It's fine. Yeah, just some more fan fiction thoughts. I think in certain franchises, there are certain stories or characters where there can be more explored. I like to fill that in with my own ideas. That's why I love fandom, and that's why I love fan fiction. And some of them are just so ripe for it. I always find it really funny when the creators get mad about it. And I was like, you left the gaps. Sorry for filling them in. And yeah, I like my fan fiction to be fan fiction too. I especially love the power of like the tropes that do so well in fanfic that are so well suited to like a one shot. They're so hyper specific. Sometimes they're cracky, sometimes they're not, but I just love the way you can do with established characters in an established world where you can just jump into an idea and like the way that scratches your brain as both a reader and a writer. I love fanfic. Pro fanfic. Great fanfic. Yeah. Okay, let's see. More fan fiction thoughts, and then I'll come back to the character question. Thinking of fic as its own medium has always made more sense to me. That's the beauty of it. There's this freedom within fic and other fan practices to do what source medium can't do. Exactly. That's always been my feeling, but I also recognize that like there's been for evolution in like fandom thinking and you know approach. I both accept it because like I don't want to be the old man yells at cloud all the time, but I also rebuke it on a certain level. Like I do think fandom, especially we've been watching Heated Rivalry, fandom devolve. I really do think they need to be careful about kind of sacred fandom spaces, crossing lines, especially harassment of real people. I've never been a fan of fourth wall breaking because I was brought up in baby fandom where you had to keep that shit hidden because no one wanted to get sued and people thought you were a freak for, you know, X-Files fan fiction. Oh, I guess I wasn't in X-Files fandom, but I was X-Files interested, and then I fell into Buffy. But legit, like I know it's hard to fathom now that being a nerd is cool. I cannot express enough how much of a freak you were seen as for being online and being in fandom spaces, let alone before online, which was before my time with like zines and stuff. You were considered so weird, weirdo, freak, out of touch with reality, women, mostly women, some men, but like the social ostracization was real. And like let alone if you were like into the fic and the shipping, it's that denigration of things women like and things that teenage girls like, especially. It's that whole thing, and it like that was felt, that shame and whatnot. And the thing is, I do like the destigmatization of it. I love that for all of you watching who are younger than me. I love that for you, that you grew up in a healthier, better time where you can let your freak flag fly. Like the things I hid, thinking about like my college applications, I got so good at cosplaying a normal person that I could pretend I was semi-normal. It's masking. It's a form of masking. I don't want you to know that I'm weird and intense. So like I didn't cop or admit to any of the stuff I was doing. And like, if I were applying to college now, I would be like, yeah, I run a fan fiction archive for Buffy fandom. I run a whole archive by myself. That's impressive. I did that as a teenager. I could have used that to get into college. I did not. I wrote bad fan fiction, but I could have been saying like I'm doing these like no, because you'd be the weirdo freak. Now you can be honest about those sorts of things, and I think that's beautiful. But I don't like there's a safety in it being secret and private, a safety from legal repercussions, a safety from creatives on your favorite shows ridiculing you on your favorite shows, thinking of, you know, Sherlock and Supernatural, like all the disgusting like queer baiting and shit. Obviously there's also the joy of fandom in the interaction that you can have with the TV fandom specifically, but the good with the bad, which is why 911 is interesting. I like, people have accused it of queer baiting. It's not. it's actually kind of the reason it pulled me in is that I was like, wait, there's a beautiful, open, like queer fandom that, I mean, it is crazy. 911 fandom is insane, but like the show doesn't hate you. The show does not hate its fans. I know that there are maybe Tim haters in the chat or who might come across this. If you watch the show, it's very obvious that the show is very queer, that the show likes its fandom, and the actors ship the thing that you ship. I think they're lovely about it. We don't have it yet, but I believe in the thing. And especially coming from other fandoms where that was not the case. Even like, she who shall not be named, making it very clear that she thought, all the girlies who like Draco were straight freaks and like all that kind of stuff, like the derisiveness from the creator. Yeah, I have a lot of complex feelings. And I do think there's a degree of like something, there should be a line that remains in some cases, like let's not harass actors, like, and like certain tropes and things from fanfic maybe don't need to be mainstream. AO3 is ours. Let us have it, And yeah. Oh, a 5+1. I love a good 5+1. And exactly, you can't really do that in a novel. I mean, it'd be interesting to see if someone tried, but like I love a 5+1. And it's just like that, the format, like fanfic is its own thing in the way that short story is its own medium, or screenwriting is its own medium, novella is its own medium, novel is its own medium, etc. Yeah, just a little more Buffy thoughts. Haven't watched Buffy in ages. I completely forgot Angel went to his own show. Yeah, and then the Angel show had its own like ups and downs. And 911 connection, Tim Minear worked on Angel. It all comes full circle. Such a nerd thing, hanging out in chat rooms. Yeah, I was in Yahoo groups, Buffy Yahoo groups, and then I made friends from the Yahoo groups, and we used to AOL Instant Messenger. It was a time. It was a time. My mom was terrified of my online friends that I was going to get like sex trafficked. It was great. What a time. Okay, I don't want to leave this. So I'm actually going to partially crowdsource this because this is a very broad question. How do I create character? This is the big question, probably second to how do I world build? It is big, and there's no one size fits all answer. I will say that I don't do a lot of the stuff that people do to build character. My eyes glaze over and my brain shuts down if you're like character sheet, character work questionnaire. No, not going to do that. So all I can do is talk about how I create character or some tips, but I would also like to ask the chat, drop some of your, because everyone does it differently. And I'm also so far away from where I was when I started writing that I don't even know if I can tap into the kind of entry level advice that would have helped me, because my brain is spun out so far from that. So I'm going to encourage the chat to also give tips on character. So how to create character. And then I love these questions and I'm going to come back to them. And we're almost at 2 hours. I think I can't go over 3 hours because I do have to run an errand after this. So just to give people an idea, I've got like another hour of me ridiculously talking at speed about whatever. Character. Well, one practical tip that I'll give you, it's probably something that you're already doing. The media you consume, pay attention to the characters there and your favorite characters and what makes them interesting as characters and why you like them. Also, why there are characters that you don't like. In media, also reading. So if you're not reading a ton, read a ton in the genres that you are planning on writing is a starting point, but through any form of media in general, start paying attention to what are called archetypes. Archetypes are not a bad thing, and you shouldn't be afraid of leaning into them. And actually, this is full circle to our fanfiction conversation. If you're not in fandom spaces and writing fanfiction or reading fanfiction, it's not a terrible idea. I actually think that fandom is an ideal space, and that's why I do advocate for fanfiction, if you are so inclined, to learn character. I think there's a reason that a lot of authors come from fanfiction and people love their books. I think fan fiction writers get very good at character-driven writing. Also good at commercial writing. I have thoughts about that too, because you learn what people want to read. But same thing with character, because you love a media property and you're sucked in by a specific characters, and you love them for a reason, or you find them complex for a reason, and you want to explore more about them. And then you do that exploration through fan fiction, and that's all character work. And I think there's a lot of value in that. And it's kind of thinking about what draws you to a character. And I will say, generally, how do you create character? I threw out terms a little earlier. I don't know if you were here, and they're very talky. They're very crafty. I hesitate to apply, craft terms to everything, but I heard someone else say it. I was like, I like that. I talked about core want and core wound. Core want. I have a video about this, and it's just the way that I conceptualize it. I love the I Want song in a musical. Every character should have something that they really want. A heart's desire, an ambition, a goal. And these things will drive us. They're not the whole of who we are, but we all have that. And it could be broad. It could be they want love. It could be they want success. It could be material. They want money. It could be they want to achieve something in a certain career. Though I'd say when it's like an ambition, it's a goal, there's usually something under that. I talked about the writer's Achilles heel. We want validation. And the heart of validation is really love. And that kind of boils down to self-esteem. So your core want tends to connect to your core wound. So your wound is like your thing that the thing in your life, or the thing at the core of who you are as a person, your personality or experiences, that kind of hurts you and leads to a lot of flaws, and drives both good and bad behavior. And generally the thought that any character trait can be good and bad and can lead to good and bad things. I like to think about all of these things with a character. So Evan Buckley from 911 is actually a great example. Let's use an example from a show. His core wound is insane. All he wants is to be loved, because he feels that no one has ever loved him. He has the world's worst parents. I don't want to fully spoil the show, but if you watch the show, he on a fundamental level does not believe that he is lovable, and doesn't believe that anyone really loves him, except kind of his sister. But meaning that is his core wound, it's what drives everything he does, and it's what he wants, but he's constantly getting in his own way. Because he is basically also just character traits. He is eager, he's arrogant, he's impulsive, he can be reckless, and all of these kind of character traits kind of go into a blender, and they drive his action and kind of how he approaches all the different things in his life. And I like to think about all those things and then extrapolate out from them. But let me go to some other people's thoughts on this to kind of well, here's just an example. Some people do use character sheets. I hate them, but they might help you. Even when I was new to writing, I tried one of those, and all it did was send my brain into overload. So it really is down to different people. But I also work on my characters from ideas. So I know some people start with a character and then they develop a story. I usually either do the other way around, or they just happen at the same time. So character is so much informed by environment for me. So like, yeah, this different process. Sometimes it starts with a name or whatnot. Character comes to Casey fully formed. And then you embellish to add complexity, tension, and motivation. Yes, through an actor's matrix. Can you explain what an actor's matrix is? I don't know what that is, but that might also help this person, because you never know what's going to help you. For me with character, a good example from one of my books, How to Develop a Character, with the Ivies. I was working backwards from a setting and from a thing I wanted to do, a world I wanted to play in, a competitive college admissions and murder. I knew that I wanted to write about elite college admissions and students who were very cutthroat and ambitious, and I wanted there to be a murder about admission to Harvard. Well, who are the characters who would populate that world? And it was working from that and coming up with those, both the typical characters who would populate that world, but also atypical characters and how they could contrast against each other, and creating a main character. I like to talk about outsiders versus insiders, and this comes up with archetypes as well. What is your world, and is your character an insider to that world or an outsider to that world? And you can the familiarity with the world can be useful in a lot of ways, but the lack of familiarity with the world can create a lot of interesting tension and conflict. So it's kind of building a character off. You have to make those sorts of decisions. Character creation is so complicated, but I will say I fully support. Here's more people talking about the process. Creating characters is incredibly varied for me. Some are inspired by historical figures. That's a great way in as well. Or characters from other fiction. Great way in. We're talking about the fan fiction. Not that the thing is, being inspired by characters from other fiction is not always fan fiction, and that's why I talked about archetype. Archetypes exist. There's nothing wrong with them, and there are only so many character types. I almost said ways to write characters. I actually think there's innumerable ways to write characters, but you're often starting from common base because there's commonality in stories, but also among humans. Some start from an aesthetic, others start from a backstory idea. Exactly. It's a lot of different ways into a character. I love being inspired by history. I've done that too. I read a lot of nonfiction. I like documentaries a lot. I like it. And I like that genre because I'm fascinated by people and by psychology, because I am only me. I only have my experience to go off of, but I'm interested in other people. I'm fascinated by other people, and storytelling is nothing if not an exercise in empathy. And I think that's what reading is too, or that's how you should read. That's how you should consume media in general. You should be thinking about how other people experience the world and react to the world and be empathetic. I know that there are people who don't think that way and can't relate. But through doing that work, you should be thinking, what would it be like to walk through the world in that person's shoes, and building character off of that. But for me, it's definitely a combo plate though, because we are only ever ourselves as we are writing. And you can write outside of yourself, but you are also always yourself. That's what I find so interesting about writing. It's that kind of thought experiment of it. And so you can think about other people, but you're always going to bring yourself to it as well. So it's writing characters and other people through the lens of yourself. And I advocate breaking yourself up. In terms of developing characters, assuming that you're newer, since you're asking how to develop characters, it's totally fine to be inspired by another work of fiction and just take a character you already love that someone created and transplanting them into a world of your making, to the degree that it's fan fiction or not fan fiction, and springboarding off of that. Because I think that's the writing exercise we all do as we're starting out. And it's kind of grafting on top of that and changing them to make them yours, so that you're not just stealing whole cloth from someone, and you pick apart a character to understand what is an archetype versus what is specific and how to make it specific. So it's like, I like this, but what if I apply this trait of myself to them and put them into this scenario of my making, and where will they go from that? The thought experiment of it. You are also, I'm giving you permission, but also warning you, everyone gets a blatant self-insert in their first work of fiction, or early work of any early work of fiction. We all do it. It's natural. Yes, you can write yourself into a story, but my warning to you is be very careful. The problem with writing yourself into a book is that we can never truly see ourselves, honestly. But you can learn to do it, and your therapist will clap for you if you do it well. But we'll always be a little nicer to ourselves than we maybe should be to a fictional character, to a character that we're writing. So just know that a pitfall of self-insert fan fiction, or self-insert fiction, is low conflict, low stakes, low risk. And Mary Sueism, which is where a character is like perfect in every single way and walks through a story like they walk on water, and that's kind of boring. But I also, I do feel it's a pretty essential first step. We all write a self-insert, and it's part of understanding how to write character. And you can fix that in editing. So that's just an idea. So I have not read Story Genius. Lisa Cron's book Story Genius is a helpful framework for anyone who's struggling with character wounds, wants. I know people who love it. So it is a good craft book recommendation. I just haven't personally read it, but since you say that, that is probably where I heard the term core wound, I would bet. or I heard someone who loves that book talking about it that way, and I do like that. There are other things in Lisa Cron's work and her ethos that I'm not a fan of, like how she hates pantsers, but I'm pretty sure she's the one who hates pantsers. I have feelings. But that is a good book rec for someone who is starting there. This is a good point. I would focus mostly on making sure they organically fit into your setting. Yeah, I do think that character should be a reflection of the world, and the world should be a reflection of character. I think that these things should play off of each other, and they do very well in really good fiction. Hi, Xana. I know Xana. Xana's great. Always fun to see people I know. Although, in a way, because if you're chatting with me, I know all of you. Let's see. I skipped over a couple of things, so I don't want to completely come away, and I will also circle back. Let's see. I'm going to come back to your best writing advice you've received question. I'll address this quickly. Will you see more thrillers from me in the future? Plan if I can figure out how to write faster books and utilize my time very well will be to do both romance and thrillers. Hopefully on like a good schedule. I have 3 adult thriller concepts pretty decently concepted out, and I like all 3 of them. I know they could be really, really good. Some are written more than others. And I'm not going to abandon them. And then honestly, I know I teased it. I came up with a book idea in 2008. It's a historical mystery. I've known it's been good for 20 years. I still think it's good. And I am now getting to the point where I could actually write it. I am the writer I wish I had been 20 years ago, in terms of like my skill level, my craft level, my life experience. And I do want to write it. It would be basically like communist Germany, like historical mystery fiction. Because I lived in the former East Germany as a high schooler, so I have a weird. It's. I encourage everyone to take your weird, side knowledge things and write them into books. But I've been wanting to write something based on my experiences there and like talking to people who grew up in that regime for a very long time. It's something that I find very, very interesting, especially with the full circle of fascism we're dealing with. Yay. Whatever. But yes, I will write thrillers again. I'm just currently a little romance brained. And I am very much enjoying it. Okay. Actor's matrix, internal conflict, external conflict, mental and physical attributes, etc. Potentially helpful to our friend who asked the question. Here's another fan of character sheets. Recommend looking at characters who you hate. That's a great piece of advice. And characters who you love, and ask yourself, what traits about them do you love, hate? I also would say, bouncing off of this, when you look at media that you love, think about heroes and villains, or protagonists and antagonists, and what they have in common, as well as how they differ. Because I find that the best protagonists and antagonists often have something in common, and I think that's really interesting for kind of building theme and tension and conflict. All right, I'm going to come back to this question so that I don't forget it while I catch up on chat. Even though I don't know if I have a great answer. Best writing advice you've received. Again, I will actually throw this to the chat. What's some of the best writing advice you guys have received while I noodle on what mine is? I would say I've got 3 that I really think about in terms of when they reached me and how they helped me level up as a writer. Maybe 4. If I can cheat and give you more than one. Early on, I literally do not remember who told me this, but it was someone. It was whoever gave me the advice when I was struggling to finish my first book. And it's why I give this advice to people, to throw perfectionism out the window, stop rereading my work constantly and editing it over and over and over again, and push through and allow myself to be messy and allow the words and the work to not be perfect. It's the only and in part and parcel with that, someone, it was probably on Reddit or something, whoever the first person was who said, throw away any advice that doesn't work for you. Because I had friends people in my ear telling me, preaching gospel about things like outlining and all that kind of stuff, and it was not working for me. So those 2 pieces of writing advice are what helped me break through my block and actually finish a book. Magic. That's why I give that advice now. And then later in my career, like I have like these watershed moments. It was editing advice, but it still counts as writing advice. Line editing for pacing, and that was a technique my agent taught me. And that I used to pare down Brightly Burning to sell it on sub. Amazing advice I still use to this day. Because I think effective line editing, especially for pacing, is a really important skill to learn. It's efficacy of language and expression. Because I think a lot of us overwrite, and like really learning what words and like expression you need and how people read and pacing and reading is really critical to learn. It's why I made a video and shared that advice, because it was really helpful to me. The third one that was really like a light bulb moment for me that I also made a video on, this person doesn't even know that they did it. It was, oh my gosh, I used to know exactly. It was Laini Taylor. Yeah, the author, right? Laini. Yes, daughter of, yeah. Yes, I think that's her last name. I should know this, Laini. This is gonna bother me. I'm gonna look it up. Hold on. Maybe it's not Laini Taylor. Yes, it is. Okay. Said this on then Twitter, and she articulated something that I knew and that had been working on, but she articulated it in such a way that I consciously like think about it in a different way now, and it helps my writing, and it's advice I give it. It helps me to talk about writing to other people, and it's narrating versus illustrate. Like how did she phrase it? Narrating a scene versus like illustrating a scene, like walking through a scene. It's show don't tell, but expressed in a different way, and it was really, really helpful to me. And she articulated it through a kissing scene. Like she just told an anecdote on Twitter that she had originally had a line like he kissed her, and her editor or something said, "Can you like, I want to experience this with the character," and she rewrote it to actually like be in the moment with the character, and like she posted the two examples, and I was like, oh, and it just really broke something in a positive way for me in terms of thinking about my writing, because I struggle with telling, but also sometimes you should narrate in kind of that line between like when to use the different craft techniques. Mind blowing. Love it. Share it with everyone. And then the fourth that I'll use, it's similar to the line editing one, but it's working with two editors, but they both did the same thing, and it was really effective and important with both. But it's a line editing thing again, but it's efficacy of language and consistency. I struggle with words sometimes, of language. Echoes, repetitive writing, echoes in individual words and in phrases. This is a technique that I think it's an essential editing technique in trad, but apparently not everyone does it. But I have had luckily had two editors who were trained by old school editors, were trained really, really well, who do, I call it brutal line editing. It's not actually brutal. They were both kind and very like not heavy-handed. I've never been aggressively rewritten by an editor, but when I say brutal, two editors in a row were just very on top of calling me out lovingly, positive, on repetitious writing, and they made me a better writer. And so it was the writing advice received from them, more like direction, to fix it. On all my manuscripts, both of them did the same thing. So that's why, and they were trained by different people, but they were both trained by old school editors, one at Harper, one at Penguin Random House, to identify repetitive words and phrases in the manuscript and provide them to me, the writer, at the top of the manuscript, basically a call out list of these are the things you reused over and over and over again. Don't do that. Crutch words, and phrases. And being brutal with myself about paring them down and challenging myself on a line by line basis, not to be repetitive, made me a better writer. And now I bring that to drafting. I don't, especially some of my old crutches, I don't have them anymore. Now I have, you're always going to have crutches. And in certain projects, you're going to have them, just like kind of, it's like an echo, literally an echo. It's just something that's pinging in your brain a lot, and you might fall onto more heavily onto them. But then you fix it. And that's how you make your writing better. And so those 4 things, like in succession across my career, and there will be some new thing that someone will give to me that will level me up again. But those are what have made me a better writer. That's why I share them with you. I don't gatekeep good advice. And if they don't work for you, they don't work for you. Though I would say line editing for pacing and identifying echoes and repetition and fixing them in your writing. I don't think those are optional. I think everyone should do them. You're gonna make your writing better no matter what. It's always worth thoughtfully looking at conciseness in your writing, and how you express ideas, and can you express it differently? Can you express it more cogently, etc. Let's see here. I haven't been following as much. Do you still pants your novels? This is a great question. Well, one fascinating thing is that in hindsight, I don't think I ever really was a pure pantser. I middle of the roaded it, plantsed it. And in general, I think plotter versus pantser is a little reductive. And plantser is a funny in-between word. I think I was always a discovery writer with architecture, and George R.R. Martin said architects versus gardeners. Though I think there's a little bit of I think you can be in between as well. There is such a thing as you plant scaffolding in your garden so that your tomatoes can grow up a thing. Yeah, that's a thing. I have refined my process a lot, and I'd say another thing that I'm realizing, some of my earlier books were definitely more loosey-goosey. I knew a lot less going in, but I always knew new things for sure. And I've just become better at articulating what that process is and what it was. And I've filled it in a bit more, but it hasn't really changed. I just understand it better. And I do have friends who started off more pantsers who have gone, they're now outline proselytizers, and good for them, but no. I would argue they had a process that didn't actually work, and now they have found a better process. My process, I have just refined my process. Because I hate the idea that there's something wrong with the brain process of what planting essentially is, what this is. I think it's valid, and I hate it when people invalidate it by saying you need to outline, and that if any change to your or improvement of your process as you become more experienced and traditionally published just proves, maybe I did just reinforce that, but proves that you were never good enough in the first place. But meaning, I think that the all or nothing isn't really real. It's in the middle. Like, yeah, I'm not expressing this well. So I technically have changed, but haven't changed. I'm in the middle. I've been in the middle, and I've refined my process. But yeah, I basically headlights, right? I really like character-driven discovery writing, where I know where the car is going, but I don't decide all the points along the way, because that is how I get excited and energized about writing. And I still write like that. That hasn't changed. And it still works for me. And I can do it both fast and slow. Like, it comes with roadblocks no matter what. And I don't think outlining would magically fix me, because I can't. I've given it the old college try, and I just don't think it's going to work for me, because it bores me too much. So yeah. Just throwing up comments. Understanding how strong of a writer you have to be for dream projects is painful. Yeah, it is. But I also think it's like a part of the process, and like, and I'm of two minds about it, because sometimes you have a great idea and you're not technically ready to write it the way that you wish you could write it, but sometimes you got to write it anyway. That was me with Brightly Burning. I wanted Jane Eyre in Space to be like a beautiful literary novel, and I was not, and technically am not now a beautiful literary writer, though I do think if I wrote it now, it would be a lot more refined and sophisticated and might meet the vision I had 10 years ago, but I have no regrets writing it. in the moment. Whereas, yeah, the historical mystery, like I just have known for 20 years, I was not ready to write it, and I'm feeling like I'm getting there. And even the contemporary romance that I couldn't figure the plot out for, the plot of, and is now a fake book within my book, I probably could figure it out and write it now. So it's just kind of funny. Like you figure out where you need to be. Yeah, this is for the writing advice. Because you said, yeah, I'm a second guesser. I'm a perfectionist that just to write it all down and make it pretty later. Yep. Like that is golden for me. Susanna's best advice she received: to have space between writing and editing, to have fresh eyes. Yep. Or changing the document font. Yeah. Like the mental tricks that you do to kind of make a thing fresh so that you can approach it. This is the same to get the story down, even if it's buried in some bad sentences or scenes. Exactly. I say disregard any advice that doesn't work for you, but I will say people who resist this one, because they're like, no, being a perfectionist and editing everything works for me. Doesn't. I do think that this pushes most people through a first draft, and you really just have to get through your first draft. Letting go of perfectionism to a certain degree is just necessary to grow, I believe. But I hesitate to be prescriptive, but yeah. This is another piece of advice that helped: giving my characters clearly defined intentions and obstacles. Yes. Enrich the characters and story possibilities I created by a lot. Yes. And then just to give grace to everyone, like the first like book you write, you're not going to necessarily nail that. My good friend told me what I needed to hear. She read the first draft of my first book and said it's boring and nothing happens. And that's because I was afraid to have really have obstacles, really have conflict for that main character who was a self-insert. I did all the things. You really enrich the characters in the story and what you can kind of do with them when you add to it. Oh, here's the advice that someone hated, which I think it's also good to look at the opposite. Xana. No one cares about what happens between dialogue. People only want dialogue. That is bad advice, in my opinion. No, you're not writing a script. Yeah. I love descriptions too. I do think, obviously, I think the thing with any advice and any extremes is that there's balance in the middle of anything. And I think people who give this advice are definitely missing something, because I hate it. Not hate's a strong word. I'm frustrated when I read something where exactly I feel like they've been given this advice, or they've been reading a lot of work that is sparse on any kind of description. And then it's like, it sucks because it deprives story of sense of place, of just adding extra tone and tension to things. Like there should be a balance of things. I like both. And it's also why I have definitely pushed back in my writing in YA and in thrillers. In YA and in thrillers, you're going to hear from a lot of people, sometimes readers, they'll be salty in reviews, but also from editors, where it's like, can you get to this faster? Can you oh, thank you. Dramatizing. Thank you. Remembering the thing that I couldn't, narration versus dramatization. Yes. Dramatizing versus narrating. But with editors, they'll push you, get to it faster, cut this, pacing, go. And I have, especially as I've become a more experienced writer and understood what to say no to and what to push back on, I've pushed back on this, and mostly I have no regrets. I did it in Pretty Dead Queens, and I did it in The Bitter End specifically, for sure, where the note was, you're really like chewing on scenery here. Can you not do this, or cut this, blah, blah, blah. And I've pushed back once or twice, being like, the scenery chewing is for a reason. This sense of place is important. This is to kind of develop tone, but also to reflect character. And I really like describing mountains and cold and trees. And sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need architecture porn and dress porn, and people like that too. And let me live. It's dress porn in my earlier books, and it's architecture porn in a lot of them now. There was a balance. In my romance, I had to brutally cut some interior design porn because my book was too long, and it hurt. It definitely hurt me inside. but yeah, I had like there's a writing cabin, like a cabin in the mountains that they go to, and I had so much fun describing this place, and I had to cut like half of it, and it hurt, but I could have cut all of it, but no, I don't want to because I like description. I think a sense of place is fun. Basically, the advice that worked for me is to stop thinking so much. Not that thinking through your ideas isn't good. The problem was that I was overthinking about it too much, that it hindered me. Yes, I actually just gave this advice to someone on Reddit the other day, and maybe they're here because they're like, "Are you Alexa Dunn?" I was like, "Yes." They were posting about roadblocks they were having with writing, and the way they wrote, I was like, "You were overthinking it." I've been there, I've done that, but you were thinking way too much about this. They had gone from like having a lot of steam on an idea that they love to then trying to outline it and getting like really lost in the sauce. And like sometimes, yeah, you can really overthink it. And that doesn't outliners can overthink and planters can overthink. That's not just a knock on outlining, but I do find that outlining often will lead to overthinking. And it's the same thing with the harsh writing advice I give that a lot of people hate me for, of like brainstorming isn't writing. Look, yes, it is. It is a part of the process, and I love brainstorming, and you actually do need to brainstorm. But I give that harsh advice to stop the people who only brainstorm and they're overthinking and then they can't do the thing. You need a happy. It's everything is balance. Yes, same. Narration versus dramatizing was significantly more helpful to me than show don't tell. Exactly, and that's why when Laini Taylor said that, it was like a light bulb moment for me. I was like, you have articulated the thing, because show don't tell also doesn't really work for me, because I'm like, it's not that. It's exactly, and it's narration versus dramatizing, and recognizing that you need both. You also need telling and showing. You need both, and it's about choosing where to use them and balance of them. So this is about echoes and repeats. Xana just finished reading a book that used the word ignoble, if that's how you say that. One of those words you see, but you don't pronounce very often, several times a chapter, and I almost crashed out. Yeah, that's the thing. It's not that you can't use a word more than once, though. I would say that is such a unique word. That's the kind of word my editor would probably let me use once, twice max in a book, but you definitely can't use it more than once in a chapter. You got to look for kind of like repetition and in a shorter period of time, because it's going to trip readers up. But it also just robs you of variety of expression. And what is writing if not variety of and depth of expression? I've seen ads for this, and I've been thinking about watching it. School Spirits on Paramount Plus. Like the ads look very up my alley, so that's probably one I will add to my list. Cat cameo. This is Bronte. Oh, I got a new couch from the last time I streamed, because my old couch broke, and I did an adult thing and I bought a new one. And the cats love it because it has a corduroy fabric, and it's like made for cats. Like texturally, they are in heaven. So they're next to me even more now on the couch. They're like, you bought a couch just for me. I was like, well, it's for me too. This is a good question. Would you ever write another book revolving around college admissions? Yes, potentially. I have had an idea for adult. I have so many back burner ideas. It's kind of disgusting. But for an adult thriller that would mine this topic a little bit, because I would want to make it different enough that I wouldn't necessarily be rehashing it. Technically, I dipped into the well again in the bitter end moderately. Their college admissions counselor is the one who's their chaperone, and it kind of comes up. And I was worried about that. I was like, I don't like repeating myself, but it fit high achieving seniors from a prep school. And I needed to make the counselor more complex. The teacher, I knew it was a chaperone. So I was like, it can be a guidance counselor. And what does a guidance counselor at a prep school do? They do college admissions. So it worked out. So if you haven't read The Bitter End, I use that as like a part of conflict and tension building in that book to some degree. This is a good question. Have you ever kept a crutch? Sometimes I'm like, oh, but that would work well here, but delete it anyway because I don't want to lean on it. Yeah, so the whole thing is just knowing when to use language and balance of language. It's why you will just never catch me being anti-adverb. I don't like it when people give that reductive prescriptive advice. Cut all adverbs. No, adverbs are good. There's nothing better than a judicious use of the word just or quite. And so it's mostly cutting them in as many places as I can to earn them where I use them. It's just balance. Same thing with like, you know, I have crutches with like gazes and like eye stuff and smiles, and it's just being really brutal so that I can use them when I want. And intentionally use them. Sometimes when I'm drafting, I was like, you get to use your favorite crutch here because you haven't been overusing it. Yay. Or what have you. Let's see. I've noticed a lot of great books have vivid, unique comparisons, metaphors, similes, etc. Do you have any tips for creating more of these types of comparison? Oh gosh, I wish. I aspire to be like some of those writers. Reading writers who do it and using their ideas to expand your own brain, because I definitely have a habit of just locking into where my brain already is, like getting into brain ruts, like thinking ruts. And it's not that I'm a literal writer or that I'm not a visual writer. I love visual writing and I love description and I love similes and metaphors, but I'm always impressed when someone uses a unique one or a vivid one where I'm like, I wouldn't have thought that way. And so I use other people's to make me think outside the box. And so I'm not the best person to give you like specific advice because I wish I were better at this. They're like the poets and the artists of the world who just see things a different way and manage to express it in writing. The flip of this is that kind of purple thinking can get real ridiculous. Sometimes you'll see one and you're like, that doesn't make any sense, and something more straightforward would have served you. So it's a happy balance. And the cats have disturbed the window blind, so now the light sucks. So I'm cast into terrible relief because the cats needed to lounge in the sunlight. So I apologize for how bad my lighting is right now. Roadblocks. Me and my pronunciation sometimes gets real rough. Casey is a discovery writer girly too, keeps things fun and engaging. And I like to use the term discovery writing because I think it's more likely that a lot of the people, I like I said, I don't love the plotter pantser dichotomy as much because I think it's more discovery writing versus other types of writing. And I think a lot of discovery writing is just character driven writing. Most of us are writing linearly and we're following a character and an emotional journey through a story. And that's how we discover and craft the story. It's just a different mode of writing and it's a valid mode of writing. I like writing that way. We'll fix it in post. Exactly. Yep. I love that. And same thing, like, you know, TV teaches us some good things. Fix it in post. Fun question. Most random places you get ideas for your writing while jogging, in the shower, in the middle of a conversation. Thank goodness for the notes app. Yeah. I'm still a shower thoughts girly. I've given that advice for years. Now I do get a lot when I'm washing the dishes. And when I cook. And just like in transit, like walking to and from the train, I'll do a lot of thought exercises. And before I go to sleep, it's just like all of these places where you can kind of daydream, basically. Sometimes during work meetings. Xana says she loves a lot of naturalism in prose. Same. I in high school loved me some Thomas Hardy, and that man never met a description of nature he didn't love, and I loved all of them. Nature is metaphor. I'm into it. I think I probably got that from Thomas Hardy. Tess of the D'Urbervilles is a bop. It's a depressing bop, but it's a bop. Yeah. Other people are also shower idea people. Passenger seat of a car. Thank you, Xana. I'm glad that you liked it in the bitter end. Thank you. I'm thinking specifically the skiing scene early on. My editor, and it did go under transformation. It started one way, and my editor wanted to cut it. I was like, I need this like superfluous, like cold nature thing that's a metaphor for something. I like it. If your books were emojis, what emojis would they be? Oh, I'd have to really think about that. Oh my gosh. And then probably type them out in a comment. Let me noodle on that and see what I can. Maybe I'll do them one at a time. One of them's a knife emoji, probably like mountains and knife for the bitter end. Um, your college admissions advice videos are so helpful. I go to Richmond now, but your advice was hugely impactful for me. I'm glad. Those are my weird like side hobby videos I made that not a lot of people watched, but the people who watched them needed them, and I was happy. That era of me trying to see what the algorithm would let me do on my YouTube channel. So, let's see. Okay, you say it's not me, and I appreciate that, but also sometimes I mispronounce words. A lot. For sure. Talk too fast, my brain's going, and I just things. Yeah. I think faster than my mouth can move sometimes, which is interesting. More dishes, listening to punk pop, yeah. Like, oh, I'm so glad that the videos help. Like, genuinely, like every time someone comes up to me or messages me and like tells me that I helped, I can't always respond, or I don't always respond because I'm sometimes an overwhelmed panda. But I love to hear it because that's why I did it. I wanted to help other people because like I needed the accessible, free information from writers who came before me to figure out how to get my foot in the door. And I think that other people deserve the info too. God, the cats are just making me so horribly backlit. This is like the worst lighting. I look so tired. Vanity. I'm still thinking about the emojis. Yeah. I wish I'd been to Prague. I unfortunately, like when I did my year abroad, my time abroad, I was not one of those college students who like took a spring break trip to yeah, that's actually a good idea. If you guys have ideas for emojis for my books, put them in the chat because I'm not good on the fly. This is great for the Ivies. Prague. I should have gone to Prague and I didn't. One reason I would really like to go to Prague is because one of my favorite movies of all time was filmed there, Amadeus. So I would like to go to Prague. Architecture. Speaking of architecture porn, yeah, I should really go to Prague. I'm not as well traveled as I would like. It's kind of I have a weird mode of being and thinking. I'm like occasionally adventurous, but generally not a risk taker. So meaning I will do things that people are like, that is insane that you did that. But it's like, well, I had a framework for it, and so it wasn't scary. So I spent my entire junior year of college living in Germany, and it just is a thing I did. And they're like, I can't believe you did that. I was like, and yet I didn't take a mini break to a European city that was close by because the logistics of it overwhelmed me, or the cost. Not the Prague would have been that expensive. So that is one aspect. I'm also less traveled than I would like because in college, especially when a lot of my peers were like running around Europe while we were studying abroad in London, they all had money and I didn't. I was a scholarship student who was an RA so that my room and board was free. Like I was on a budget when I was a college student living in Europe. It's like the intersection of like money and like risk averseness. I'm not good at spontaneity. That's the way to put it. I'm not good at spontaneity, and I just didn't have the right friends to influence me. I needed to be better influenced to get outside my comfort zone and do things. Everyone's like, it's crazy. You moved across the country to California. Like, yeah, not crazy to me. I don't know. And yet, things that people consider normal, I won't do. Like, I can't even ride a bike. So I'm a strange animal. Yeah. A person of weird extremes. Xana gets books ideas right before she falls asleep. Same, yeah. Google Docs on my phone for those nighttime thoughts. Very, very helpful. This one's good, Xana. I know what that one is. People can get. That's one of mine. People can guess the title. Those are good emojis. See, you guys are better at emojis than I am. I'm just not good at emojis. And I don't even know how to type them into the message box here on this streaming thing, so I'm useless. Oh, here. What medium do you use for your writing community? Discord, Facebook? So I'm a private one-on-one relationship girly. I have done the group chat thing in the past on Slack. I am in a single group chat now, a very select pared down group chat, um, because group chats can get so out of control and large Slacks and Discords can get so out of control. And I am on Discord. I'm in a writing Discord, a very small writing Discord. And then all my other communication is one-on-one because I like one-on-one individual friendship-based communication. I have learned over time that I prefer that. Or in person. A lot of my community is in person. I started, like, especially once I started debuting, really working to build out an in-person group so I meet up with people to write in LA. I know that's easier in certain places. Like, I'm in a big city. There's so many writers here. I don't even know all of it. Like, there are so many authors here, like, where I'm like, wow, I can't believe that person lives in LA. I've never seen them. I've never met them. It happens all the time. A ton of people live here and within the area. So I'm a little spoiled for choice. Plus, a lot of aspiring writers move to LA. Shocking no one. Go into a coffee shop, throw a stone, you find a screenwriter. So the thing. The harder part is finding the novelists. But actually, just the happenstance of it, I was at a coffee shop 2 weeks ago, and a woman at the next table was like, "Are you Alexa Dunn?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Come over, sit." And we started talking about her querying, and now we're friends. I like writer friends. So if you are in LA and you see me, you can say hi to me. I promise I'm friendly. And I need friends. I like friends. I have friends, but I like more friends. Maybe too much. So yeah, Discord, and then one-on-one chats. And my bread and butter, I do Instagram DMs since I left hell site Twitter /X. I used to do Twitter DMs. Now I do Instagram DMs for one-on-one conversations, and Google Chat. I'm a Google Chat girl, occasionally Facebook Messenger. But yeah, if people are, I have had friendships fade because our chat platforms don't align. Like brain-wise, there are certain platforms I can use and I can use readily. It needs a desktop application. I hate typing on my phone. I need it because I type very fast and I say a lot. I'm a word vomit person. So, sometimes friendships come and go just based on the platform. So. You did a good job. The stars we steal. Very good. I'm proud of you. And this one was Pretty Dead Queens. What's a place in Asia you would want to visit? Have I been to any Asian countries? So I am so poorly traveled. I want to go to so many places in Asia. So fun fact about me, I work in the international space, like global entertainment space. So I work with a ton of Asian brands. And so I have all this cultural knowledge that is, of course, useful in the United States because that is where I expend it. But it is a crime that I have never been to Asia, or Southeast Asia. Asia is massive. I want to go to the Philippines. I want to go to Thailand. I want to go to Vietnam. I want to go to Taiwan. Mainland China, huge. Maybe Hong Kong, like because of like architecture and whatnot. There's so much more. Korea, duh. I want to go to South Korea. I just want to go to all the places with all the culture. Japan, I want to go to all the places. And Japan has so many places to go. Though I will say, like, one thing I'm aware of, that it's not the reason I haven't gone to Japan, but that makes me, I'm gonna have to be thoughtful about going to Japan. First of all, it's going to mess with my head how much taller and fatter I am than everyone. They're gonna stare at me. It's gonna be weird. That's not meaning I know that I will stick out like a sore thumb in a funny way, but also I have weird dietary restrictions. I'm a slightly picky eater, and in some cultures that works less well than others, and I will suffer in Japan. My sister lived in Japan, and I have talked to her about the food, and I've gone to I'm very limited at Japanese restaurants. I am the problem, it is me. And so I'm like, I would have to have a game plan for eating that would not mean that I'm that horrible American who goes to McDonald's the whole time. I refuse to do that. So I would have to have a food plan for a lot of places, but definitely Japan because of how much seafood is in the diet, like fish and stuff. I'm just really picky. I'm also picky about certain types of meat, which would be a problem in certain places. Yeah. Oh, Indonesia. I'd like to go to Indonesia. I want to go to all the places. Because there's rich and vibrant culture and it's different in every place, but also I have contacts in some of those places and I want to go to places where I can, people will take me out to the best restaurants, then maybe I can get a free place to stay. So yeah. Let's see. I mean, that's also my answer for a lot of Europe. Like I'm a globally minded person who is abysmally poorly traveled, but that's also why I've been really getting into cruises, because cruises basically provide like a tacky, touristy framework, but a safe framework. Safe in the sense like logistically, because I have like anxiety about travel. It provides a safe framework to break me out of my comfort zone and enable me to go places I would like to go. Once I've been somewhere, I no longer have anxiety and I will go back. I like to go back to places I've been before. So when I've had travel opportunities and funds, I will just go back to the same places. So I've been to Germany a bunch and I've been to London a bunch and I keep going back to Alaska. I've been to France a couple times. Another crime, I've never been to Italy. Worst Italian American ever. I've never been to Ireland, and I am more Irish than I am anything else. I've never been to Scotland. I'm terrible, but I've been to Wales twice. Like, I'm terrible. I need someone else to just like force me to go places. That's what I need. Ooh, I feel this, the AI writing thing, and someone also asked if I think that publishing is going to use AI in their covers. I goddamn hope not. Not a fan. I think that if you use Gen AI to write, you're not a writer. I know that's a salty opinion, but no regrets. I don't think that there should be a middle ground there. That said, AI can do very interesting things, but you need to actually write. If you want to be a writer, you need to do the actual writing. Quelle surprise. Quelle surprise. Let's attempt to be bad at French, or better bad at French. Oh yeah, if you're in a remote location, it's really hard. But online is great. Like I love and value my in-person writing friendships, but all of my early ones were online, and a lot of them are still online. I know I really do want to go to Japan. I want to go to all the places. And then Asian cruise in my future. Yeah, no, honestly, I would bet you money that that is what's going to work for me. I will probably do a Royal Caribbean cruise in Asia. That would be a good entry level for me, possibly. And also another nice perk is I can go to Universal Studios in Japan for free. So that might be another incentive. I have a friend who did that, went all the way to Japan to go for free, which is fun. Let's see. Oh, I feel that. And I know that like talking to anyone parasocially can be really intimidating. I feel that too with people. Also, I know I'm a lot, but I see you. You've asked really great questions and offered really good writing thoughts and tips. Everyone in the chat has. I really appreciate all of you who are active in the chat, as well as people who are watching who aren't able to chat or don't want to chat. You are all YouTube. I haven't even checked. I don't even know if anyone is watching this on Twitch. I am technically streaming to Twitch. One person. Oh, I see. I'm learning this new platform. I'm trying Restream, and its capabilities. And so far, I definitely like the vibe of it. I need to get the hang of it. So there's one person on Twitch. Hi, person on Twitch. I'm gonna learn Twitch. I have a friend who's a Twitch streamer who really wants me to like go hard on Twitch. He's like, I don't game. That's actually not true. I don't stream gaming. I game, and so I actually probably should actually do Twitch because I am a PC gamer. I need to not have a full-time job if I'm going to do all that kind of stuff. I can't mentally wrap my brain around it. The reason I don't do all that kind of stuff and as much social media is like the brain space that would take away from my writing. And I need to write. I really need to write. Oh, all right. And it's almost 4, so I'm almost at my cutoff because I have to run an errand. I have to do adulting, and then I'm seeing Wuthering Heights tonight. So, oh, you met me once at a bookstore signing. Was I nice? Sometimes I get like awkward. I mean, I assume I was nice, but meaning I can be very awkward panda myself, and I worry I come off as awkward to people. I hope I was friendly and effervescent, but not too effervescent because that can also intimidate people. So yeah. Yeah, Xana, Asia might kill you. Soy allergy is a rough one. Luckily, I do love soy, and actually, that's the thing. I love soy and vegetarian and vegan substitutes. So there's a lot of that option in Japan. So that's probably I would just eat a lot of tofu probably in Japan instead of if it's an option as an alternative to seafood. So and raw fish. I'm just so weird about like it's. I don't even dislike it. I'm just weird about it. Picky about it. Oh, I love that you're going to Japan. I really do want to go to Japan. I want to go to so many places. How many languages do I speak? I am both a typical and an atypical American. I am a typical American in that I'm absolute garbage and really only speak English, and I'm very limited, and I hate that about myself. But I am technically atypical because I do technically speak two languages. I speak two languages, and most Americans don't, unless they are Spanish-speaking Americans, which makes them better than me in a lot of ways. I wish I spoke Spanish. I speak German. So I speak English and German, but I wish I spoke German better. I learned it as a teenager. I really support multilingual language education in the United States. I think we should do more of it. I think it limits us as a population severely that we don't emphasize it more. It should, I mean, Spanish makes the most sense, but I just more immersion options. So like there are schools that have Mandarin immersion options and Spanish immersion options. I think there should be more options. Obviously, a lot of those would be charter or private. I think that the thing that stops us so often is like the argument of like, what would you put in a public school? My school briefly as a kid, and it's so funny because I understand why the parents weren't happy. But in hindsight, I'm like, dang, mom, I could have spoken Russian. There was a petition to turn my public elementary school into a dual language Russian immersion program when I went there because we had so many students who were from the Soviet and then Russian embassy in my school. And the parents, I know why they weren't a fan. I remember my mom wasn't a fan. It's because it was a power play and there were political things. There was a whole thing of my age, like it was the Soviet embassy. And when we would go to like birthday parties there, we were followed and our parents weren't allowed inside. It was like Cold War shit. I get that's why they didn't want the petition to go through, but in hindsight, I was like, I could be fluent in Russian now. That would have been so useful and very cool, but also just would have expanded my brain at a key age into a second language. And I bet I would be much more multilingual if I had learned a language when I was younger. Like my sister, who is a half sister, who is European, speaks 4 languages. She speaks 4 languages because she grew up in the UK and also had a multilingual parent. And so my sister speaks English, German, French, and Japanese. How cool is that? I am useless. So, and that's another thing I should say about travel. I am very self-conscious about being a bad American. Like I want to be a good American abroad. I like to be very respectful of other cultures and open-minded. And I don't like barreling in and just being like, speak English to me. So I've also been very weird about travel. So I go to Germany because I can speak German and I speak German when I'm there. And the people will speak English to you, but I prefer to like speak German. I went to France with my sister who is fluent in French so that like I wasn't blundering around as a dumb American. Actually, if I go to Japan, I'll probably drag her with me and I would ask her to speak Japanese. But you can't always go to a country and have someone who speaks the language. I had been planning, this is like sad morbidness. I was saving Italy to go with my mother because my mother spoke conversational Italian. She wasn't fluent, but she spoke Italian because she took it in college, and but she died. Whoops, sad. But like, yeah. But at a certain point, I guess that's just an excuse not to travel. But I prefer to go and like really respect the culture and language as much as I humanly can. And I only speak 2 languages, and German doesn't help me anywhere. Well, it helps me in German-speaking countries, but it doesn't. I like German, but yeah, and I'm a little rusty. But if you parachuted me into Germany right now, I'd be fine. I would probably need like a week or 2 of adjustment, but I would get all my needs met. Not a problem. Not worried. But don't ask me to speak it now because it's like when you stop thinking in a language like and speaking it regularly, you're gonna lose it. But I still have a lot of my understanding levels of it. Group trip to Japan. Yeah, it's so tricky. Like I'm not relative to most people who are picky eaters, I am not a picky eater. I have actually said this to people who've been like, no, you're not. I've told them what I am weird about eating. I eat a lot. Because like you meet someone with ARFID and you realize, oh, you're not a picky eater. Like ARFID is legit. It's like legit. It's a diagnosis. It's like very serious. And also like I feel like more and more people are really, really restrictive eaters and picky. But especially I guess in the time I grew up, like I got a lot of flack for the things I don't eat. And like genuinely, I struggled in Germany a bit when I lived there because of some of my like I dislike one of the staples of German cuisine, which really isn't great. It wasn't helpful. And especially at the time they were really shitty with vegetarian food. Like my safety net is I can eat vegetarian food, like, and then vegan food, as long as there's no mushrooms. That's one of my no foods. I don't like mushrooms, but like so like if there's a veggie burger, I'm good. And mind you, I eat core proteins. I'm really not, especially in this country, I'm not considered like I'm fine, and I eat almost every vegetable. But I struggled a bit in Germany because of like I really don't like most forms of pork, which is a problem in Germany. It's like a big problem in Germany. They also really like mushrooms in Germany, which both of those definitely a problem. But so that was my first experience of like, oh, in some cultures you're going to struggle if you are a picky eater. And like my sister told me about food in Japan. And I was like, oh, this is a nightmare for me. Like this is bad. I wouldn't be able to. And like I've been to restaurants. Yeah, it's fine. We're fine. But I don't have any like food allergies, and I feel very fortunate in that. Though I'm lactose intolerant, but I just suffer. Let's see. Yeah, and that's the other thing that's been my thing with travel for a very long time. Money. Travel is really expensive. When I had time, I didn't have money. And I guess technically now I have time. Now I have more money than I used to, but I don't have time necessarily. Or to do the trips I want to, like to go to Europe and just like take time off and run around. And I also don't have anyone to travel with. So like on a regular basis. So oh yay, I'm glad I was nice. And I knew your username. Did I meet you in San Francisco? That's one place where I remember knowing a username of someone. So, yeah. Let's see. Yay! I'm trying to get better about streaming live. Like I did it last month and then haven't, and I was like, stream live. Yeah, German is really common as a second language in the Midwest because of all of the immigration to the Midwest of Germans. So. I definitely really want to go to Taiwan. One of my colleagues is from Taiwan. So like, that's my main, like, that's like, it's not that I wouldn't go to mainland China. It's my main exposure is Taiwanese. People I know are from Taiwan here in LA, especially. And I know that they are distinct. I have like some of like the stuff that comes up because I work with entities, Hong Kong entities, mainland China entities, and Taiwanese entities, and they are different. And there are nuances. And I find it really interesting. The things that you kind of have to pivot and work around. Oh, those are cool languages. Italian. Boy, yeah. ASL for work. I briefly, I was in signing choir in elementary school, so I know a few words of sign language that go to specific songs. That was, and if they'd offered it as a language, I probably would have taken it. But it was like I'm right in the millennial generation before they started more routinely offering it as a language. So I didn't. I would have, but I definitely would have taken it. We had hearing impaired students mainstreamed into our class, and that's one of the reasons we had a robust signing choir in my elementary school. So we had a full-time interpreter in class with us and whatnot, and she was great. One of my favorite like things I remember is she told us she saw Mission Impossible in the theater because we were 11-year-olds, and she was telling everyone about Mission Impossible. This movie was a big deal. And she always signed when she talked. And her signing the scene where Tom Cruise like jumps out of the rafters and is hanging by a wire, she was acting it out and signing it. It was really fun. I will always remember that because it was so animated. Yeah. Oh, I wish I were a polyglot. I wish. I like genuinely, I feel that it is a character flaw of mine that I am not more worldly and don't speak more languages. And I wish I did. And it is a criticism I will lob. Yes. Okay. I do know who you are. I probably was awkward, but friendly. I remember you. Yeah. Um, but yeah, we should drag Americans as much as humanly possible for how non-multilingual we are. It shouldn't be unique that I speak a second language. It is unique that I speak a second language. We are so broken and we need to be better. Yeah. So, and like, I will say it's me. You can live in LA for 15 years and not speak a lick of Spanish. People are like, what? I'm like, yeah. I wish I did. Obviously I know phrases and words in Spanish, but yeah, I don't. Yeah. Oh, Dutch. Dutch is like a funny language to me because I speak German. If I hear it, I know I'm 90% of it, I know what people are saying, but then it's like the mental of seeing it. Like if I see it written, it's like mirror German. It's so funny. Actually, hearing it is a little bit of mirror German too, but like I can generally get by and understand Dutch because of how similar it is to German, which is kind of fun. So German is a little bit useful every once in a while. I genuinely like German. I'm being funny. But of all the languages to speak, it is kind of a funny one. All right, it's 4:00. I have IRL things to do, alas. See if I can make it in time to go pick up my glasses. I have another pair, got my new prescription popped in, and then I'm gonna go to the movies. And well, just something a little global. I think I'm gonna have pierogies for dinner because I'm going to the LA Farmers Market. So if you are local to LA, don't stalk me unless you really want to. But that's where I'm going tonight. So this was fun. I did a thing. I did it twice. I did something new. I think I like Restream enough to maybe pay for it so that the watermark is gone and I can do more customization of it. Because this is fun. I definitely like the features. I can do screen sharing. Like I basically need a streaming program because I do still plan on doing a whole stream about AI. Y'all, the tests I have been running through Claude and ChatGPT, I'm both dismayed and some of it's hilarious. I basically called ChatGPT out for lying to me because it made up quotes from my book, and ChatGPT groveled like a little bitch. It was really funny. So there's all sorts of stuff we can talk about because I have a passion for. I'm very anti AI in writing. And trust me, it's weird that I've been testing it, but I am the guinea pig to test it so that y'all don't have to. Because I think the only thing to do is, conscientiously object. But I'm taking a bullet for us all because you still have to understand the thing that you don't like. So I'm trying to understand it better. So that is still going to be a stream. And these are our test streams so that I figure out what I'm doing. So thank you for joining me. I also promise this is on the fly. I promise I will make a decision ahead of time, but next time, because it's harder for people to show up if I randomly decide to do these. So thank you, everyone. And let me try, see, all these like little things. I didn't create an exit message, but they have an automatic one on Restream. There are all these cool like little lower thirds that I can put up. It's fun. So yeah, thank you for joining me. Happy Friday, everyone. Happy Galentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day if you celebrate, and if you don't, that's normal too. I don't. I will be writing romance tomorrow. That's like celebrating Valentine's Day. It's a 3-day weekend, which are my favorite weekends because I can write every single day of the weekend and usually get a lot of work done. And I'm really trying to spool myself up to draft this book. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming. I just want to golf clap the chat. It was active on the last one too, but like y'all were so good on this one. I tried to be better about asking you to like prompt you guys because sometimes it's just very boring watching me read, and I like you guys saying things that are more clever than what I have to say or spark me to say something as well. So you guys were great questions, great contributions. We're a community. We'll help each other out. Real readers will never want to read an AI story. The thing is, because that's the thing, I'm pretty sure I've accidentally because it's like they're out there, read fanfic that's AI written, and like you get into it and you start to feel is a parent. But some readers don't care. We have to care. So yay. Okay, everybody. I'll see you soon. I'm going to really try to make this a habit and be better at it. So yeah,